Chapter 201. So why is this rumor believed by so many people? When the rumor reached Seer's ears, he looked bewildered. Was there something wrong with the brains of people like the Heian nobles? Were they just naturally lacking in intelligence? Gojo Haru and some unnamed goddess in the heavens supposedly gave birth to him. But no one even dared name the goddess. They just claimed she had a nose and eyes. Who could actually believe this? What's so unbelievable? Scandalous tales between humans and demons, or humans and gods, are always wildly popular, Gojo Haru said casually, even trying to calm the young man down. They even romanticized the love story between Lord Abe no Seimei's father and a fox spirit. It was glossed over like some heartwarming legend. As for my supposed love affair with that goddess, Gojo Haru covered his face theatrically with his sleeves. From another's perspective, sure, it's touching. Are you referring to the version where you love her and she loves you, but the gods of Takamagahara forbade the union, forced her to return to the heavens, and left you abandoned on earth? Seer said blankly, summarizing the story with cold precision. Apparently, Seer himself even played a small role in the tale. Because after the goddess returned to Takamagahara, she discovered she was pregnant. She decided to give birth to the child without alerting the other gods. Since the entire story was fabricated, Seer didn't even bother questioning how a goddess wouldn't know when she became pregnant. In short, the child born to the goddess was supposedly Seer, a half-human, half-god raised in Takamagahara, indistinguishable from other deities. Why did he descend to earth? The story explained that Seer, different from the other gods, began to doubt himself. Eventually, he learned the truth, that his real father was a human. Thus, the Son of God descended from the heavens to meet his biological father. But then, why did he go on a killing spree and gouge out his father's eyes? Because, according to the tale, the Son of God believed these people were responsible for preventing his mother's love and saw his father as a traitor. Those he killed were supposedly innocent, as the real culprits who prevented the union were members of the Gojo family. But Seer didn't know that, so he simply lashed out at everyone. To appease his rage, the emperor ordered a shrine to be built to honor him. The story was so well constructed, uninformed people couldn't help but believe it. From Seer's point of view, though, as the supposed protagonist of this myth, he had only one reaction: are the people of Heian-kyo expert novelists? And were there really people who cried over this? Even members of the Gojo family didn't deny the tale. When questioned, they just looked away, silent and confused. As a result, the Gojo family was once again ostracized. Everyone in Heian-kyo whispered, "Are you the ones who brought the Demon King into our midst? Isn't this great? They gave you a noble origin," Gojo Haru said with a smirk, looking like a flirtatious fool. It was apparently a noble tradition in Heian-kyo to fabricate elegant, dignified backstories for celebrities. That way, they could justify why they couldn't measure up. After all, the chosen one was born noble, born with sacred blood. "I don't need a story like that to prove my nobility," Seer muttered, expressionless. Are demigods truly noble? How are they any different from other mixed bloods, especially when the so-called goddess of the Neon Isles was involved? If he were said to be a divine child of a god from over there, maybe he'd accept it. But what did the goddess over there do to deserve being tied to Gojo Haru in a myth? Forget it. Just a fool's carnival, Seer sighed, brushing the thought aside. No one would dare say to his face that he was a demigod anyway. As for what I mentioned, granting me the divine title of Tsukiyomi, what's the consensus? Seer asked, changing the subject. Not optimistic, Gojo Haru replied, shaking his head. A divine name, one of the three honored sons of Takamagahara, couldn't be replaced just by appointing someone new. What if I just kill the emperor? The white-haired boy asked bluntly. With a statement like that, there probably won't be any issues. Gojo Haru grinned. That was essentially saying, kill anyone who opposes, until no one dares. As long as that idea spreads, opposition will disappear. In half a month, there'll be a dedication ceremony. You need to prepare something to place in the shrine for the priests and shrine maidens to revere, Gojo Haru reminded him. Prepare something? No thanks. Just make me a statue, like a Buddha in a temple. I want my likeness placed right in the shrine. The white-haired youth made the request boldly. Neon's shrines typically didn't use god statues. They enshrined relics or talismans inscribed with divine names. But as a rabbit, and therefore more in tune with different traditions, Seer preferred having a statue. Oh, and just like the fox statues at Inari shrines, I want a statue of Sora at the entrance. Seer pointed to the large white tiger beside him. Otherwise, how would people know it was his shrine? A statue of him inside, and Sora outside, anyone who saw would know whose shrine it was. Can they manage that? Seer asked with a grin. I don't think there'll be a problem, Gojo Haru said with a smile. Faced with the possibility of death for failure, most people would find a way. Still, the ease with which Seer made the request was startling. Even Gojo Haru, if he were deified, wouldn't casually ask for a full-body statue. News of Seer's demands quickly reached the ears of outsiders. What? He wants a statue? Even if he's truly the son of a goddess, that's too arrogant. As the losers, we have no right to oppose the victor's request, someone noted. A group led by Minister Fujiwara met with the emperor to relay the demands. The emperor's attitude? Indifference. If they want it, give it to them. The shrine was built for that very purpose. If they were already going to worship him as a god, why quibble? So the special shrine was built. Sorcerers, onmyoji, and spiritual craftsmen were tasked with its construction. They taught, summoned shikigami, used spiritual energy and cursed techniques to speed up the process. What normally took years was finished in weeks. Then came the statue. Make it handsome, Seer stood before the sculptor, showing him all the fine details. Carved spell marks on his face. Intricate designs on his clothes. I understand. The craftsman stammered. The statue took nearly 2 weeks. A 2-meter-tall white marble likeness with individual strands of hair visible. The eyes were paraiba tourmaline provided by Seer, glowing, haunting blue gemstones said to exist only in the heavenly realm. His robes were painted using gem powder, creating vibrant and extravagant detail akin to a thanka. It was luxury, embodied in stone. The shrine was completed the day after the statue was done. Then came the elaborate rites, welcoming the statue, offering food, making sacrifices. Then kneeling. This part got stuck. Seer sat beside his statue, glancing at the offerings with an amused smile. 3. 1. Everyone knelt. The few who didn't were immediately executed on the shrine's pristine white marble steps. Clean it up. Continue, Seer muttered, munching on an apple conjured from his own body. He didn't touch the offerings, not because they were bad. Wild boar, pheasant, abalone, good ingredients. But the cooking was unimpressive. Mero and Kong dragged the corpses away and resumed the ceremony. White tiger statues were placed at both sides of the entrance. Whether angry or unwilling, everyone bowed their heads in front of Seer. From then on, no one dared call him Gojo Kiri. They addressed him as Moon God, or Your Highness. Shrines originally dedicated to Tsukuyomi began moving his statues and per Seer's instructions. Stealing shrines. Stealing divinity. Stealing faith. No gods descended to stop him. This crushed the hopes of many who had been waiting to see him punished. Have I still not changed things enough? Seer sat alone in the shrine, murmuring. Everyone had left. Priests and shrine maidens were still being selected. Since Seer just appeared out of nowhere, no one truly believed in him. Even those who didn't receive any blessings. Of course, most shrine maidens didn't receive blessings anyway. But those gods didn't exist in the mortal world. Seer did. This made things complicated. Adult shrine maidens usually didn't change faith. So the officials went searching for children with spiritual sensitivity and tricked them into believing in Seer. He didn't care about priests or shrine maidens, but found it all odd. He'd killed this much, was even planning to use the Yusan family as dogs, and still, the world consciousness hadn't reacted? Wasn't this a major deviation from the story? What next? Kill everyone in Heian-kyo, so the protagonists 1,000 years later would never be born. He wasn't a mass murderer. And I've stolen a divine name, a shrine, even faith, yet no god has come down to stop me. Is there even a god system in this world? Seer asked, sitting cross-legged on the high platform. If gods existed, wouldn't they be furious by now? Gods have emotions too. Joy. Rage. If someone slapped him in the face like this, he'd kill them without hesitation. Even their dog would get slapped twice. Tong, is there a god system in this world? Seer asked the system, in Mandarin. In this world's setting, there are humans, demons, gods, ghosts, and cursed spirits, the system replied. The world wasn't large, but it had a flashy assortment of beings. Then why hasn't one come down to fight me? Seer asked, almost disappointed. Maybe he could even try slaying one. The system didn't respond. The world consciousness hasn't appeared. Nor has Sukuna's true form. I've done all this, how is it not enough? Seer grumbled. And when do I time travel? The story's main timeline starts 1,000 years from now. That's my stage. But 1,000 years ago. I've been here so long. What if I die of old age waiting? I'll be too late to even enter the main plot. Seer kept complaining. Who knew when the system would finally let him travel? Energy is accumulating. Please wait patiently, the system replied coldly. TSK. Seer stood up and walked toward the door. The shrine was large, built into a hillside. Kyoto was surrounded by mountains, and this elevation helped isolate it. Beyond the main room housing his statue, there were side chambers for priests and shrine maidens, and a courtyard. And a long flight of stone steps up the mountain. At the top was a red torii gate, flanked by 2 marble white tiger statues, the threshold between mortals and gods. Farther in, the shrine stood proud. Seer was satisfied with the result. But unsure how long he'd stay in Heian-kyo, or whether someone would defile his shrine once he left, he decided to learn barrier techniques. To protect the place, Chapter 202. Barrier techniques were part of the Onmyoji's arsenal, barriers used by conjurers. I don't need a barrier, Gojo Haru said with a carefree grin. Most sorcerers in the Heian era didn't worry about being seen by civilians when casting spells. Obviously, the notion of secrecy practiced by modern-day jujutsu sorcerers hadn't emerged yet. Are there any sorcerers skilled in barrier techniques? Seer asked. Well, maybe just give an order. Gojo Haru suggested with a shrug. As long as you say you're looking for conjurers good at barrier arts, someone's bound to show up. The man with a black cloth tied over his eyes smiled. He used to wear white, but at some point had switched to black for reasons unknown. Ah! Seer suddenly realized, of course. He was now effectively the invisible emperor. Heian-kyo had already fallen under his rule. Wouldn't it be simple to summon a few barrier specialists? No matter what, he had to find them. Then call all those good at barrier arts to me, not just from the Yusan family or conjurer circles, Seer said aloud. Having officially moved into the shrine, Gojo Haru followed him in without hesitation. Naturally, The Gojo family also sent attendants to help clean and handle daily affairs. Gojo Haru was a young master incapable of domestic tasks, but very capable of being pampered. While the Zenin and Kamo clans stayed in the background, the Gojo family knew how to properly welcome someone. They even pushed people from the Fujiwara and Aide clans into the shrine. Everyone treated Seer like an invisible murderer, someone who might snap without warning and unleash a massacre in Heian-kyo. As long as Seer voiced a thought in front of these people, the Yusan family would hear of it within a day and begin preparing countermeasures. Seer understood why these people were sent to him, but he didn't care. He kept them around to serve as messengers. "All right, you heard me, go and spread the word," Seer said, smiling at the bowed figures on either side. They looked like simple servants, but each was either a conjurer or onmyoji. They didn't clean by hand. Instead, they attached talismans to brooms and let Shikigami do the work. Their power ranked around second-grade sorcerers. Compared to the 4 special grades mentioned in modern records, the Heian era had many powerful individuals. In this period, first-grade sorcerers roamed the land freely. Second grades were expendable. Third and fourth grades were menial at best. Special grades numbered nearly in the hundreds. That was normal special grade, not counting anomalies like Gojo Satoru or Ryomen Sukuna. Seer himself, by strength, counted as a special grade too, but he crushed others of that rank like weak curses. The people sent by the various families were all second grade. First and special grade sorcerers were too valuable to risk, but second grades? If they died, they died. At Seer's casual remark, the servants bowed their heads lower, looking like they were waiting for death. Trying to spy on your master and leaking his words. That was an easy way to die. They all thought Seer's words were a veiled threat. "Why aren't you moving?" Seer asked flatly. "I told you to go. Isn't my attitude clear? I don't care. I don't care who you report to. Otherwise, I would have killed all of you the day you were sent here," he added as he walked past them slowly, his white hair fluttering. "Be the messengers you were sent to be. Bring me those skilled in barrier techniques. I don't think any of you want me to go down the mountain myself, do you?" Hearing that, the messengers looked up at the pale-haired youth, trying to judge whether he meant it. Failing to read him, they bowed again and exited silently. They'd use magic or Shikigami to relay the message. There was no surveillance, no mobile phones, no cameras in this world. Otherwise, the battle between Seer and Gojo Haru would have been viral, and the rumor that he gouged out Gojo Haru's eyes wouldn't have grown so wild. Still, their methods were surprisingly efficient. 3 days later, those claiming to be skilled in barrier techniques began arriving at the shrine. Some were carried up, bound, like civilians being kidnapped. But Seer wasn't a kidnapper, and these weren't young girls. Not even women. "Were you unwilling to come?" Seer asked the tied-up man curiously. The man had struggled on the way, but once carried past the torii gate, he gave up entirely. Even after being untied, he didn't try to run. "Of course not. I'm just not very good at it," he muttered while climbing to his feet, nervously watching the boy's face. Just being able to stand was a relief. This so-called moon god hadn't killed him on sight. Seer's pale blue gaze swept over the man's legs. Only then did the man realize, those eyes, the 6 eyes, miss nothing. Not health. Not secrets. Not lies. "I want the best. Are you the best?" Seer asked, looking at the gathered group. There were only 20 or 30 of them. Both sorcerers and onmyoji. All of them looked at least 30. Well, of course, mastery of any technique took time. They looked weak and frail, clearly the scholarly, support type, research-heavy kind of sorcerer. "In terms of barrier arts, we are all veterans," said a middle-aged man. May I ask what kind of barrier you're looking to create, Your Highness? Another added. Let's start with a phantom killing array, Seer said thoughtfully. A large-scale one, covering the entire shrine starting from the Torii Gate. Anyone who enters should fall into the illusion and die without realizing it. Oh, and I want it to be self-sustaining. The corpses or blood of intruders should become fuel for the barrier's upkeep. He seemed to think his request was entirely reasonable. Your request? The gathered sorcerers looked at one another. How to put it, this was quite the tall order. You can't do it? Seer asked, his voice disappointed. The implication was clear, fail, and you won't be leaving alive. Remembering what this boy had done before, the group clenched their jaws and replied through stiff expressions, given time, of course we can do it. For a moment, Seer felt like a demanding client asking for colorful black, and these guys were the vendors just trying to stay employed. Then get to work. Seer encouraged them with a bright smile. With that handled, he turned his attention to another matter. What? Are these two? He asked, pointing to a pair of small girls. Actual little girls, 5 or 6 years old. Dressed in traditional shrine maiden garb, white tops, red hakama. Pale skin. Long black hair to the waist. Still too young to become the eerie, ghost-like figures some older shrine maidens became. No powder white faces or exaggerated blush or blackened teeth. They looked like normal, pretty girls. But one glance revealed noble lineage. Quiet and gentle. Even a bit melancholy. That kind of mood on a 5-year-old girl was something. But then again, in Heian times, people were considered adults by age 12. So early maturity was expected. The two girls bowed deeply, kneeling, and introduced themselves in unison. We are the twin daughters of the Fujiwara family. We were ordered to serve you, they said together. Please give us names, they added, bowing again. Seer didn't go around naming people. He only named pets or things he owned. And children weren't his property. That kind of thinking was disturbing. Just use your real names, Seer replied dismissively. But the Fujiwara family gave us to you. We belong to you now, so we shouldn't use the Fujiwara name anymore. The girls said in clear, earnest voices. Seer felt a headache coming on. Children. Women. Both complicated. He didn't enjoy interacting with kids, and wasn't good with women either. The only female relationships he could think of were with his mother, and maybe Nyeon? Use your real names, or I'll send you back. Your choice, Seer said flatly. Understood. I'll be Noriko, and she'll be Renzi, one of the twins replied. They gave up their surname, keeping only given names. What can you two do? Seer asked coolly. Would someone else have to care for them? All work can be entrusted to us, Noriko replied softly, waiting for his verdict. Then fine for now, Seer said casually. If you're useless, I'll send you back. Thank you very much. Noriko bowed again, pulling Renzi beside her. Wonderful, Noriko. That means we, Renzi whispered, trembling. Shh. Noriko covered her sister's mouth. Don't say it. No one could know. What's the story with those two? Seer asked, turning to Gojo Haru, master of all things in Heiankyo. He didn't want to pressure the girls, but he was puzzled. Why would the Fujiwara send such young Miko? So he turned the question on Haru. Those two. Gojo Haru recalled, waving his folding fan. They're the cursed twins of the Fujiwara clan, he said, tapping his palm. Twins are considered bad omens. Both their talents are mediocre, barely any spiritual power. They're basically normal girls. To break the curse of twins, there's only one solution: let one die. That way, the survivor's talent supposedly blooms. The Fujiwara family probably planned to raise them to 12, then choose one. Or maybe just marry them off within the clan, Gojo Haru added nonchalantly. So married at 12, huh? Ancient standards. Also, twins being unlucky? That's absurd to Seer, he came from a land where twins were auspicious. But in Neon culture, they were seen as cursed, something echoed in many manga stories. Even if they're allowed to stay, why send such mediocre girls to be my shrine maidens? Aren't they afraid I'll take offense? Seer asked, annoyed. Who knows? Maybe they're just gambling, Gojo Haru replied with a grin. Them? Seer raised a brow. Gojo Haru clearly knew more than he let on. I doubt you'd care if I told you, Haru teased. I want to know anyway, Seer said. Interest and annoyance were two different things. Fine. Gojo Haru relented. About half a month earlier, a meeting was held at the Fujiwara estate with Gojo Haru, the Fujiwaras, and other clans. They discussed how to find shrine maidens that would suit Seer. They asked Haru directly, do you know what he likes? Haru had some insight, so he made a bold suggestion, send 2 small yokai. He'll like that. Make sure they're pretty, he added. Seer had a known fondness for attractive non-humans. Gojo Haru had figured that much out. But his idea was rejected immediately. 2 monsters? As shrine maidens? Insane. Beautiful monsters were rare and hard to tame. Might as well find beautiful human girls. Then the twin daughters of the Fujiwara family stepped forward. We're willing to serve His Highness the Moon God for life, they said. Minister Fujiwara was furious. Sending these 2 might look like an insult. But please let us go. Just let us try. We'll do our best to make him like us, one of the girls said, forehead pressed to the floor. He'll kill you on sight, the minister snapped. Even if he does, we have no regrets, they said firmly, never raising their heads. In that moment, Gojo Haru found them intriguing. Maybe they were the type Seer could accept. Because Seer wasn't as cruel or bloodthirsty as rumors claimed. So Haru told the others, let them try. I think Kiri-kun will keep them. And if he does, we won't need to keep searching for more shrine maidens. Chapter 203. So the cursed sisters of the Fujiwara family were sent to Seer's shrine. Even the people who arranged this were mentally prepared to receive news of their deaths. Even the sisters themselves came ready to die. That's probably it, Gojo Haru said with a nonchalant tone, referring to the incident Seer hadn't known about. Seer curled his lip, clearly uninterested. That's it? Not tragic enough. Not sympathetic either. It wasn't that Seer was heartless, there simply wasn't much to pity. After all, the girls were still born into the Fujiwara clan. Were they really any more pitiful than the masses of peasant children with no clothes or shelter? Don't you think it's great? These 2 shrine maidens have a rare quality. Like uncut gems, Gojo Haru said with a hint of admiration. You know how other shrine maidens usually are. He trailed off, recalling the women he'd been introduced to. He once went to see a candidate his family elders had recommended. The usual praise, gentle, beautiful, refined. Skilled in music, calligraphy, poetry, dance, always some cultural accomplishment. But all of them were bland. Each one the same, as though carved from the same mold. When they met, it was always through a screen. A maid relayed every word, their voices soft and scripted. Tiny appetites. Gowns too heavy. Hair trailing endlessly. Like lifeless dolls. Gojo Haru couldn't remember a single one of them. Their so-called beauty never stirred a single emotion. Women in Heian Kyo were always melancholy, gentle, and waiting to be saved. That kind of shrine maiden held no interest for him. Isn't that just what everyone prefers? Seer deadpanned, eyes flat. Supply exists because of demand. These traits were considered virtues precisely because people liked them. And if Gojo Haru didn't? If you don't like that, then clearly you're the odd one out, Seer added dryly. But I have 6 eyes, Gojo Haru replied after a pause, smiling faintly. 6 eyes are inherently alien. His tone was serene. It took centuries for a person with 6 eyes to be born. They were anomalies, never fitting in. Fewer than 5 had existed across a millennium. The Son of God born with 6 eyes was always destined to be alone. And you don't like those girls either, do you? Gojo Haru asked Seer. Seer scratched his cheek with his index finger. I like unique things, he admitted plainly. See? You don't like them. I don't like them. So together, we're not the odd ones out, Gojo Haru said, smiling again. With 6 eyes, they were each other's only peer in this age. So, what'll you do with the twins? He asked directly. I'll keep them, Seer sighed. Might as well. His shrine didn't need powerful Miko anyway. Maybe their talent, looks, everything was split between them, he mused. Twins often work that way. If their talents were strong to begin with, even split in 2, they shouldn't be this weak. Seer muttered to himself. Maybe the Fujiwara never discovered their true potential? Gojo Haru offered. That's possible. Seer nodded. Maybe their aptitude was physical, something like a melee fighter? Their spiritual power was too weak for spells, but maybe their bodies held potential. In that case, they might make decent shrine guardians. Seer considered aloud. Admirals, huh? Gojo Haru chuckled, finding the idea strange but amusing. Looking forward to it. The Fujiwara sisters had never been associated with the word warrior. Mero, Seer called, turning to the blonde youth standing by. Bring those 2 brats here. The young man bowed respectfully and left. You trust him a lot, Gojo Haru said with layered meaning. If Seer truly came from 1,000 years in the future. What about the blonde boy who had followed him so loyally? The way Mero behaved didn't match this era. He came with me, Seer replied simply. There's nothing I wouldn't let him hear. Mero and Sora were his bound tools. Why would anyone worry about their own equipment rebelling? Besides, Mero was completely submissive to him. Even if he did betray him, it would end in failure. Gojo Haru nodded knowingly. A loyal retainer. Sir, I've brought them, Mero announced, entering with a little girl in each arm. The 2 girls were limp, like kittens held by the scruff of their necks. Maybe they tried resisting, without success. Mero dropped them gently. They hit the ground with soft cries, scrambled to adjust their clothing, then knelt politely. Your Highness, they greeted Seer. Then, Lord Gojo, they said to Haru. I know why you want to stay, Seer said calmly. The girls were pale, shaking where they knelt. I'll let you stay, but you can't freeload. You'll need to prove you're useful. Choose one, he said, tossing a pile of weapons in front of them. All were taken from the Yusan clan's arsenal. Not a cent spent. The system had reopened the weapons mall, but why buy, when you can just take what you want now? Weapons? Noriko and Renzi looked bewildered. They were noble daughters. The heaviest thing they'd ever held was likely a porcelain teacup. They were dressed by attendants. Even their hair was combed for them. Their white, delicate hands had never touched anything cold or dangerous. My daughter only needs to be beautiful, their father used to say, admiring them like prized treasures. They were raised to be elegant furnishings, like many other women. I'll take this, Noriko said, picking up a bow taller than she was. Then I want this, Renzi said, dragging a tachi toward her. Bow and blade. Ranged and melee. Not bad teamwork, Seer muttered, stroking his chin. He didn't really expect them to become strong. This was just a whim. But you'll need it, teacher. Seer looked at Gojo Haru, Sora, and Mero in turn. Gojo Haru turned his back instantly. Sora approached the girls, sniffed them once, then sneezed in disgust. The incense smell was too strong. Mero stood silently. And of course, when no one volunteers, the responsible one gets picked. You'll teach them, Mero, Seer said. But sir. Mero raised his head in surprise, clearly unsure. I don't know how to use bows or swords, he added awkwardly. He'd never trained in weaponry. His strength came from instinct, natural talent, and basic techniques, not refined combat. No need to teach them that yet, Seer said, glancing at the girls staggering under weapons bigger than they were. They need to build their foundation first. Mero looked down at the tiny girls, clearly reluctant. He had no interest in babysitting. I know. But he still agreed. Orders were orders. You too. Mero exhaled and addressed them for the first time. Don't slack off. The girls, weapons shaking in their hands, nodded solemnly. Training began that very day. Mero had never trained anyone, but he had been trained. So he copied the methods he remembered. Exactly. The result? The girls collapsed on day one. Dead? Mero blinked, kneeling beside them. Still breathing, but faces flushed, chests heaving, like they were sick. So weak. If they died, would Seer blame him? Nervous, Mero scooped them up and ran to the shrine's main hall. Seer had been there lately, working on literature. More specifically, copying texts. With the painted skin ghost experiment complete, he'd moved on to other projects. When he saw Mero carry the girls in, Seer's expression turned complicated. Wasn't Mero supposed to be the reliable one? How did the kids end up half dead after one day? Seer began, then hesitated. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I even eased up on the training, Mero explained, confused. He was clearly holding back. You didn't train them like an Zoldyck assassin, did you? Seer asked, putting down his pen and kneeling to examine them. He confirmed they were just exhausted, with mild fevers. Bruised hands and feet, bleeding palms, but no lasting damage. They'd live. Seer didn't bother healing them. Reversal technique wasn't meant for curing fevers. I'm relieved. Mero exhaled. Seriously, Seer muttered, exasperated. In the hunter world, humans had stronger baseline physiques. Even someone like Mero, who looked weak, had survived the hunter exam, a feat requiring absurd endurance. But this was the cursed world. This was still Heian Kyo. These girls were 5 or 6 years old, raised as noble daughters. Stack all those debuffs together, how could their physical fitness not be trash? They might be weaker than most peasant kids. 5 or 6 years old. Noble daughters. No nen, no combat experience, Seer said, listing off the facts to Mero. Mero finally understood. I get it. They're just too weak. Even if Mero trained at this age, they couldn't take it. It really is difficult to train something this fragile. But I believe in you. Seer looked at him with confidence. Mero, who had been frowning with frustration, immediately lit up under that gaze. You can train them, right? Seer asked. Yes, sir. Mero barked with sparkling eyes. He smiled like a golden retriever again. Seer didn't use the reversal technique on them, but he did still have medicine. He'd once needed blood replenishing pills for his frequent nosebleeds. And cold medicine, too, back before he learned the reversal technique. Now those meds were just sitting around. Time to put them to use. He tossed a few pills to the Fujiwara attendants nearby. Give your young ladies some medicine. Let their own people handle it. If that didn't work, they could call in an onmyoji for cleansing. We'll add some live training later, Seer mused aloud. Catch some weak monsters, small animals. The girls might actually enjoy that. He paused. No, better start them with dogs. But honestly, he had a feeling they might not even be able to beat a dog. Chapter 204. The medicine Seer had brought back from the hunter world worked remarkably well on the frail girls of ancient Heian-kyo. After all, people who take medicine frequently build resistance, but for first-time users, the effects were immediate. Within an hour, the two girls' fevers had subsided. They were recovering in one of the shrine's many empty rooms. The shrine itself lacked furnishings but had no shortage of space. A maid, kneeling beside them, tended to their needs. She had originally been sent by the Fujiwara clan to serve Seer, but had never been permitted near him. Each time she tried to offer assistance, the cold-eyed blonde man would scold her and drive her away, as if afraid she'd steal his role. It wasn't until the two shrine maidens fell ill that she became useful. After all, it wasn't exactly appropriate for a man to care for young, pure girls. And frankly, it was a job that others looked down on. She wasn't the only maid sent to the shrine. Other clans had sent their own, and although the two girls were born Fujiwara, they'd been stripped of that name upon arrival. Their status was no different from the maids. Everyone here was trying to survive under His Highness. They all had to kneel when greeting him. And rather than care for two sickly children, most of the maids were more interested in seducing the rumored demigod from Takamagahara. That, after all, was the secret mission assigned to them by their clans. Of course, they were only expected to try. No one would force them. But there were always dreamers who wanted to become the wife of a god. Ji-kun has finally woken up. His Highness's medicine truly is miraculous, the maid said softly, watching the girls with trained grace. Even her bow was elegant, showing off a practiced, supple posture. Noriko and Renzi's faces paled as they remembered the moment they'd lost consciousness. They'd actually fainted during training. And wasted His Highness's medicine. Noriko. What should we do? Renzi whispered in panic. Did His Highness say anything? Noriko squeezed her sister's hand and forced a smile as she asked the maid. His Highness only said that you'll resume training and take the medicine daily, the maid replied in a quiet voice. The girls exhaled in relief. Thank you for telling us, Noriko said, smiling politely. At home, she would have offered a gift, but here, they had nothing. They hadn't even been allowed to keep their jewelry. The maid bowed again and quietly withdrew. That's wonderful, Noriko. He didn't send us away, Renzi said, visibly relieved. But her sister didn't respond. Kiko? Aren't you happy? She asked, studying Noriko's face. Even as twins, they weren't truly the same. Noriko was smarter, stronger. If only one of them could survive. It would be Noriko. Renzi remembered a moment from a year ago, when the two of them slipped away from the women's quarters and eavesdropped on their father's conversation. Noriko and Renzi. What should we do? If they grow up beautiful, keep them both. If not, keep one, discard the other. They'd widened their eyes in terror and instinctively clamped their hands over their mouths to stifle a gasp. Then, retraced their steps carefully back to their residence. After that, the faces of their once kind relatives felt distorted, blurred by mist, impossible to read clearly anymore. I am happy, Noriko said at last, shaking her head and smiling softly. Renzi, we have to work harder, to prove we're useful, she said with quiet urgency. That man, His Highness, didn't seem cruel, but there was something terrifying beneath the surface. He didn't strike her as someone who would tolerate dead weight. 2 days later, in front of the shrine, the sisters stood shoulder to shoulder, facing two puppies. They were about the same size as the girls, small, white-furred, almost resembling Samoyeds or Shiba Inus. But they weren't ordinary puppies. They were dog demons, purple and red demonic markings visible on their foreheads. Seer squatted nearby, watching the pups. The longer he stared, the more familiar they seemed. Deja vu. Where'd you find puppies from the dog demon clan? Gojo Haru asked, eyeing the creatures curiously. They definitely weren't just cubs. Ask him, Seer said, pointing at the massive white tiger who was feigning nonchalance. Apparently, the cubs had been tossed at Seer's feet that morning like trophies. I asked Sora to bring me 2 dogs. These are what he brought, Seer said with a pained expression, hand on his forehead. He'd wanted normal dogs, but the idiot tiger brought back demons. They smell like dogs, Sora said defensively, sniffing again with utmost seriousness. No matter how many times I check, they're definitely dogs. Well, dog demons are dogs, Gojo Haru agreed. But the demon part was still important. You can't smell cursed energy, huh? Seer muttered. Different power systems. Sora was a beast-type demon, not trained in sensing cursed energy. Forget it, dog demons were still dogs. These 2 looked weak. They probably couldn't transform or use clan techniques. I doubt the dog demon clan will ignore this. Gojo Haru warned. You kidnapped their kids. No way they'll just pretend it didn't happen. Especially with their sense of smell. A visitor from their clan was almost guaranteed. Maybe they'll send an adult dog. That'd be perfect. Nobody here knows how to train these girls, Seer said with hope in his eyes. Of course that's what you want, Gojo Haru sighed, shaking his head. The group of sorcerers still squabbling over barrier theories off to the side hadn't slept in days, deadlocked over formation structures. Woof, woof. The 2 pups barked nervously. Are these our opponents? Noriko and Renzi asked, confused as they stared at the fluffy demons. Maybe not normal, but definitely cute. They'll be your long-term sparring partners, Mero said. Even using Nen, he couldn't detect anything dangerous. Long-term. The girls exchanged looks with the dogs. Woof woof woof. One of the pups barked frantically, hopping in place. Cute even when angry. I don't understand dog, Seer muttered, listening to the chaos. The pups, Wansi and Quan Kang, were terrified and anxious. Puppies express fear by barking. And baring their teeth. But here? Danger was everywhere. Wansi, what now? Quan Kang whimpered. I dunno. Wansi whirled in circles, chewing his tail in panic. Damn humans, Quan Kang growled. They'd been kidnapped. Just like the elders warned, humans were devious, full of tricks. And that giant tiger had betrayed them. A demon helping humans? Disgraceful. Our master, Hongyan, will come save us, Quan Kang whispered hopefully. The strongest, most reliable dog demon they knew. They just had to survive. Then, wham! Both were swatted to the ground. Mero, having used Nen to smack them, loomed over them coldly. Even if you can't speak, you'd better understand. You're going to be these brats' training partners. Got it? Mero had been in this world long enough to understand, sorcerers, onmyoji, demons. Same basic archetypes. Demons were like beasts. And most beasts could understand human speech. The puppies whimpered and lowered their ears. They could understand, they just couldn't speak until they reached human form. This is sparring. Not a death match. Injuries are fine. Killing is not. Got it? Mero warned again. The dogs nodded. Woof woof. Let's play along for now and escape later. Woof. Yeah, got it. They knew the humans couldn't understand their language. So they spoke freely. They assumed ready stances and faced the girls. They recognized the shrine maiden outfits. Shrine maidens used spiritual power, not to be underestimated. The girls, however, had no idea how to react. Mero didn't wait. Begin. The dogs sprang into action. One leap, and both girls were knocked to the ground. Then came the bites. The sisters flailed, barely managing to block, but couldn't stop their sleeves from being torn. Seer raised a hand to cover his eyes. Embarrassing, but predictable. He'd suspected from the start they couldn't even beat a dog. Stop. You should have been ready when they moved, Mero said coldly, gesturing for the pups to stand down. Instead of teaching them to defend, he taught them to strike. Because offense was the best defense. Your foundation's a mess. Weak grip. Unstable footwork. Mero listed flaws calmly. He might not be a teacher, but he had combat intuition. The girls listened quietly. Woof woof woof. Barked the dogs. What about us? Woof woof. Don't we get training, too? Quiet, Mero said flatly. Exclamation mark. The pups shivered, tails between their legs. Terrifying human. TSK TSK. Seer made the traditional puppy call of his homeland, waving them over. Woof? What is that noise? Woof. Is that guy human or demon? They exchanged worried glances. They couldn't smell anything off him. But there was a faint scent of blood. Yet no one was bleeding. It didn't work, Seer muttered, disappointed. Back home, if he made that sound, a whole line of dogs would come running for pets. Maybe different breeds had different instincts? Forget it. Carry on, Seer said, turning away. The battle wasn't even cat versus dog. It was boring. He had better things to do, like continue his experiments. The last one involved copying a book and birthing a ghost from a fictional tale. Now, he had a new goal. Could he create a curse or ghost entirely on his own? If a powerful sorcerer places a curse, the object might immediately spawn a special grade spirit. In that case, love is the most twisted curse, he muttered, pen in hand. But how do I fall in love with you? His experiment hit a wall. He thought of that one cursed spirit born from obsession, longing, pure love. But Seer. He touched his chest. He didn't know how to love. Couldn't even pretend. He didn't even love himself. Seer looked down at a portrait on his desk and sighed. It was supposedly of him, but not really. White hair. 4 arms. 4 eyes. A grinning mouth on the torso. It was a monstrous interpretation of himself, modeled after the original appearance of Sukuna, inspired by Liang Mian Sunuo's primal form. This being was supposed to be a great demon. The portrait was complete, but nothing had manifested. This experiment, it seemed, was another failure. Chapter 205. A wolf-like howl echoed outside the house. Violent winds surged, ripping up roof tiles and sending them flying. Seer looked up. The roof tiles were gone, exposing the sky and a few support beams above. He dropped his brush, smearing ink across the white paper. A disagreement and the whole roof's gone? Impressive. Seer let out a mirthless laugh and stepped outside. Floating in the air was a massive dog demon, covered in thick snow-white fur. Flame-like markings curled across its forehead, and vivid red demonic patterns were etched into both cheeks. You're the one who kidnapped members of my clan? The dog growled in a low voice. In terms of size, Sora looked like only half the demon's size. As the white tiger and giant dog faced off, the 2 captured pups immediately began barking frantically, eyes bright with hope. Woof 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 woof. That tiger grabbed us. These humans beat us and gave us nothing to eat. Master Han Yan, save us. The massive dog demon cast a sideways glance at the teary-eyed cubs, then focused on the white tiger. The scent lingering at the abduction site had belonged to the tiger. He tracked it all the way here. Normally, demons wouldn't step inside a shrine, not even past the torii gate. Shrines were protected by barriers. A demon who entered risked death or injury. But this shrine had no barrier. Was the deity worshipped here not actually a god? Let's fight. If you win, I won't pursue the matter. If you lose. The demon exhaled a chilling breath through his nose. The threat was clear. Sora eyed his much larger opponent and unsheathed his claws. All right, go, Seer said, patting Sora's head as he stepped up beside him. Time to test the difference between beast-class demons. Doesn't matter if you lose, but if you lose badly. Seer's tone turned cold. Sora twitched his ears. That won't happen, he said confidently and launched into the sky on a gust of wind. Don't fight here. If you break my shrine again. Seer's gaze shifted meaningfully to the big dog demon's fur. If his shrine got wrecked, he'd turn that dog into a carpet and lay it at the front gate. A divine beast pelt would scare off plenty of would-be troublemakers. Not fully understanding the implications, the dog demon felt a creeping unease. And shrine? What shrine? Before he could think further, a slicing wind blade forced him into motion. The dog and tiger clashed in midair and quickly disappeared over the horizon. Big demon. So huge. So handsome. The two girls stared dreamily after the retreating dog demon, eyes glazed. Their cheeks flushed. Wait. Flushed? Seer narrowed his eyes and knelt beside them. Their faces were definitely redder than their necks. Were they blushing? Over a dog? What was wrong with these two? Sure, the demon was objectively good-looking. Seer stroked his chin. If a dog of that quality existed in his previous world, it'd fetch at least 6 figures. Snap out of it, Seer clapped once. The girls flinched and jolted upright. Humans and demons have no future, he said seriously. How long does a human live? Maybe a century. Demons? Some hadn't even reached maturity at 200. A human-demon romance wasn't just impractical, it was tragic waiting to happen. Anime loved dramatizing bonds between humans and monsters, complete with heart-wrenching partings and bittersweet eternal longing. But reality was less poetic. Your shrine maidens. That means no love lives. Get used to it, Seer warned. What, was he supposed to clothe, train, and feed them only for them to run off with some tall, handsome yokai? He wasn't running a free matchmaking service. Huh? Noriko blinked, then shook her head vigorously. It's not like that. I was just admiring how majestic he was, Renzi added, flustered. They weren't fawning over the dog's appearance. It was the power, the freedom to soar, to roar. It was awe. If only we could be that cool, Noriko whispered. Seer squinted. Noble lady, black check mark emoji. Miko, black check mark emoji. All that was missing was beauty. He'd seen enough anime to know how this trope played out. Demons liked delicate beauties, especially noble ones. Don't worry. We'll never fall in love with humans or demons. The girls said quickly, pale with fear. They must have misunderstood him. Of course a god wouldn't want his shrine maidens flirting with monsters. Seer didn't bother correcting them. Words meant little. Humans were fickle. Monsters, at least, remembered their promises for centuries. Can Master Sora win? Noriko asked timidly. Their divine beast looked a lot smaller than that demon. Well. Seer tapped his chin. Probably not. Master Sora is less than 3 years old. That demon's probably hundreds. In human terms, it was a toddler fighting a grown man. If Sora won, it'd be a miracle. Will he be okay? Renzi asked. Not your concern. Keep training, Seer waved them off. No use worrying. They should focus on getting stronger. In the distant mountains, dog and tiger collided. The fight devastated the terrain. Forests flattened. Wildlife scattered. Villages at the foot of the mountain felt the tremors of beast migration. Hongyan, the dog demon, quickly realized, this tiger was fast. Too fast. He fought with wind, staying out of reach. And Hongyan specialized in close combat. Dog clan techniques favored close quarters. And some of them were deadly. He exhaled green vapor, poisonous. But a gust of wind scattered it instantly. He conjured a glowing green whip and lashed out. Sora dodged most strikes, but barely. Each lash left deep, blackened scars in the earth. Definitely poisoned. Cunning mutt. Filthy poison user. Sora growled, and stopped dodging. He lunged straight into the whip, pinned it with his paws, and began gnawing. His teeth cut through it like blades. Are you insane? Hongyan exclaimed. The tiger's voice was childish. About the same as his cubs. You'll get poisoned. Bah! I don't care, Sora snapped, mouth full of whip. I've trained for poison. You're just a cub, and you fight like this? Hongyan asked in disbelief. It had started a serious duel with a baby. His reputation would be in shambles if word got out. Why are you with humans anyway? Hongyan asked. What's wrong with that? Sora replied casually. You call a human your master? Hongyan recoiled. A demon submitting to a human? Sure, it'd become more common since Abe no Seimei, but still, it was rare. Demons might love humans, even form packs, but to call one master? That was extreme. My master is the strongest man in the world, Sora said proudly. His tone dropped an octave, trying to sound older. The strongest? I've only heard of Seimei being the best. Who's your master? Hongyan asked, shifting into his human form. Loose robes. Silver hair. Red markings. Crimson eyes. Definitely a handsome devil. My master is the strongest man in the world, Sora repeated, undeterred. Many demons could shift forms. No big deal. You're serious? Hongyan raised a brow. He didn't look serious. If you met him, you'd be flattened and skinned for a rug. Sora barked proudly. I don't believe it. Who is he? Hongyan asked again. He wasn't just any demon, he fought in the Hyakki Yagyo, stormed Heian Kyo, and lived to brag about it. The shrine you saw? That's my master's, Sora said. Your master has a shrine? But he's alive. Only dead gods have shrines. Sora paused. He didn't actually know if Seer was human or not. My master is the strongest, Sora insisted again, ears flicking. Fine. I'll see for myself, Hongyan smirked. He shifted back into canine form and took off toward the shrine. A moment later, he was gone. Wait. Sora's ears twitched. Oh no. He was headed straight for Seer. What if he blames me? Sora bolted after him. Stop. Meanwhile, back at the shrine. The two pups, having given up on rescue, were resigned to playing pretend with the girls. They weren't toys. They were dog demons. Fearsome beasts. But the girls were so weak. A simple kick sent them flying. A swipe of the tail knocked them flat. Woof. Please come back soon, Master Hongyan. Woof. Woof. Come rescue us already. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blasted through the shrine. Hong Yan burst through the doors of the main hall. He headed straight for the central chamber. There, seated beneath a towering statue, was the same young man the statue was modeled after. Robe-clad, blue eyes, calm expression, pen in hand. He didn't even look up. "Hey, you," Hong Yan began. "You dare call yourself a god? Are you?" Then the boy glanced up. Just once. And Hong Yan froze. Eyes like polished gems. Deeper than oceans. Domain expansion, infinite void. Something was wrong. He could see, hear, think. But he couldn't move. His body, his limbs, even his breath. Everything was paralyzed. He stood there, helpless, caught in something vast and incomprehensible. Chapter 206. Infinite void is a seriously broken domain. Once deployed, anyone caught inside instantly loses their ability to resist, unless they can counter with their own domain. Clearly, the dog demon in front of Seer couldn't. Sora, who had been chasing behind in a panic, finally arrived, just a moment too late. He glanced at the scene, then quietly backed away a few steps. Better not to get involved. Collateral damage was real. He didn't fully understand what a domain was, but he did understand his master's powers. When that area appears, anything inside is in danger. Sometimes, intruders are torn apart by invisible blades. In rare cases, like this one, it's like the victim's soul is ripped out. Honestly, way more terrifying than just dying. Sora peeked into the shrine, tail twitching. But whoever designed the building had really thought things through. He couldn't see inside from any angle. "What are you standing there for? Get in here!" A familiar young voice called from within. Sora let out a breath of relief, raised his head, and trotted in proudly with his tail wagging. Inside, he found the dog demon, now in human form, collapsed on the floor, eyes wide and vacant, staring at the ceiling beams like he'd forgotten what thoughts were. Add a little drool and a goofy laugh, and you'd have a full-blown idiot. "See? Told you not to mess with Master. What a dumb dog." As Sora smugly wagged his tail and let it slap the poor guy's face repeatedly, he rubbed his head affectionately against Seer's palm like a giant housecat. With thick fur, that tail hadn't done much damage earlier. But now, in human form, the demon had no such protection. His face turned red from the repeated smacks. Seer glanced at Sora's coat. Still clean. No injuries. He figured the fight had ended before it really began. Infinite Void was traditionally a closed domain. But Seer didn't like that version. A closed domain was a literal glowing sphere, a floating bubble that could be shattered. So he'd restructured his into an open-style domain, similar to a demon-suppressing shrine. Anyone could walk in and out at will. And since there was no visible barrier, there was no barrier to break. No one even realized they were inside the domain until it was too late. Just like that poor bastard with the luck-based technique who once accidentally ran into Seer's range. Instant collapse, both spiritually and physically. Compare that to closed domains, like the one used by a certain cursed spirit named Zhogo. That one got blown open from the outside. In most cases, even 0.2 seconds of exposure to infinite void is enough to overload the brain with 6 months' worth of information. That's the human limit. Push it further, and the victim becomes comatose, or worse. Some people with hyperthymia, total memory recall, already suffer due to excess memories. What infinite void does is far worse. A one-time flood of unfiltered knowledge, total sensory saturation. Seer had accounted for demons having stronger mental resilience. So he gave this dog 2 full seconds. 5 years worth of information dumped into his brain all at once. Even for a demon hundreds of years old, it was unbearable. His brain needed time to reboot. I do like your dog demon form better, Seer said casually, crouching beside the stunned figure. Hong Yan's mind slowly began rebooting at the sound. Who's talking? His sluggish thoughts churned clumsily. Even common phrases felt hard to comprehend. Oh. Was the human saying his demon form was beautiful? Well, obviously. His true form was one of the finest in the clan. The human form's kind of dull, Seer said next, nonchalantly. Yeah, the guy's human form was good-looking, but Seer had seen countless pretty faces. Majestic monsters? Now that was more his style. Plus, something about this guy's features reminded him of a few people. Shadows of faces, silhouettes from memory. Who the hell is talking nonsense? He was handsome in human form. Plenty of human women swooned over him. Who was this disrespectful brat? Hong Yan blinked slowly, his gaze shifting to the white-haired boy crouching next to him. He watched as the boy casually stroked his hair. Like a dog. Then pinched his chin. Then reached into his mouth to check his teeth. You're putting your hand in my mouth? Unbelievable. In his fury, Hong Yan tried to bite down, give the brat a lesson. What kind of lunatic sticks their hand in a demon's mouth? Wait. Why can't I move? Why isn't there blood? Why can't I bite? Even in human form, those fangs are nice and sharp, Seer murmured, withdrawing his hand. His tone was calm, almost bored. How about showing me your true form again? I heard a dog demon once had his fangs forged into a legendary weapon. Yours might work too. He began washing his hands as he spoke. That's when it clicked. That's why this guy looked familiar. White dog fur, demon markings, of course. He looked like that big dog from his childhood anime memories. But the transformation was missing something. No giant shoulder pelt. Unacceptable. And those red clothes? Too similar to a certain second son. Yeah, something was off. As for the weapon forging thing, obviously, Seer meant the father of Big Dog and Little Dog. The legendary dog general. A family where everyone fell in love with humans. If their mother, Sesshomaru's mom, had also loved a human, they could have had a perfect little family portrait. Dogs just naturally love humans. Hong Yan bolted upright. What did he just say? Pull my teeth out to make weapons? What kind of human says that? Even Abe no Seimi never went that far. No Onmyoji in Heian Kyo would dare. Oh right. He did lose. He wasn't even sure how. He'd blacked out and just woke up on the ground. A loss was a loss. But still, this was going too far. I have a few old teeth from when I was younger. I can give those, Hong Yan blurted quickly. His brain was finally back online, and it worked fast now. Oh, right. Dogs lose their baby teeth, Seer nodded. Maybe that legendary sword had been forged from such a tooth. But those aren't nearly as sharp. He muttered thoughtfully. They're not that different. I lost them after I turned 200. Hong Yan lied instantly. Technically. Still baby teeth. After all, 200 demon years was like being 8 or 9 in human terms. By 400, he'd only be 18. So adult teeth really were stronger. Fine, Seer shrugged. Then bring me your teeth. A loser gives everything. Who knows what trick you used? I don't accept this loss. Hong Yan puffed up defiantly. At least let me lose clearly. What would he say to other demons? You fought that guy, right? How'd you lose? I fainted after seeing his face. Humiliating. He grimaced at the imagined gossip. You're very good at losing, Seer said, pinching his chin thoughtfully. All right, let's go. He flew off into the sky. Wait. Flying? Since when can humans fly? In his centuries of life, Hong Yan had never seen a human fly. No one Myoji could do that. Is he even human? He had a shrine. A thought clicked into place. Ah! He must be a minor god. But Hong Yan had fought gods before. Seen many fade away from lack of worship. He wasn't that impressed. Still, he followed without hesitation. A few kilometers away from the shrine, Seer stopped. How about here? He asked casually. Far enough to avoid more shrine damage. Roof repairs were still underway after the last mess. If we're competing here, fine. Hong Yan shifted back into his demon form. You ready? He asked the boy, all calm. The moment Seer blinked, Hong Yan lunged. Of course, he'd strike first. That was just common sense. Then, blinding red light filled his vision. It swallowed everything, dimming the entire mountain, except for that ominous crimson glow in Seer's hand. Reverse cursed technique, he. Next thing he knew, his body was flying backward. A mountain exploded behind him as he slammed into it. Even with his thick hide, the damage was immense. He was critically wounded. Get it now? Seer appeared in front of him, expression unreadable. Hong Yan lay there, barely breathing, vomiting blood. If not, want to go again? Understood, he croaked. If he'd known it would go like this, he'd have just surrendered. This was way more humiliating. Now bring me your teeth, Seer said. Also, since you lost twice, I get 2 requests. Fair, right? He didn't wait for an answer. Hong Yan just slumped silently. Whatever. The strong were always right. My second request, you're going to guard my shrine for 500 years, Seer said. 500. Fine. Hong Yan accepted immediately. To a high-tier demon, 5 centuries wasn't long. They hit their stride around the 1,000-year mark. All right, go fetch your teeth, Seer nodded, pleased. I can't move, Hong Yan admitted after a long pause. He was too injured to even shift back. Going out like this was suicide. TCH. Fine, Seer sighed, placed a hand on him, and used reverse curse technique again. Now you can go. On it. Hong Yan took off like a shot. As he ran toward his mountain home, he cursed the pups in his heart. This is all your fault. He'd only come because of them. And now look at him. When he got back, he'd beat those 2 into the ground. The Dog Demon clan resided atop a sacred mountain, protected by spiritual barriers that kept humans away. As the tribe's poster boy, Hong Yan was popular. The moment he returned. Hong Yan. You're back. Where are Wansi and Quang Kang? Wait, why are you bleeding? What did you fight? Dozens of demons swarmed him with questions. Hong Yan ignored them and went straight to his den, digging up some old teeth he'd buried 100 years ago. He emerged, holding them carefully. Wait, are those your baby teeth? Where are you taking those? Why do you look like you got wrecked? You're not bragging about your victory? Weird. Hong Yan gritted his teeth. He snapped. With a roar, he smacked down everyone asking questions, then flew off with his teeth in tow. As his silhouette vanished, silence fell across the mountain. Then. Hong Yan's acting weird. He must have fallen in love. Maybe he's giving his teeth to someone as a gift. No way. Not a human, right? Should we follow him? You go. Never mind. The dogs exchanged looks. And flopped down to lick their fur instead. Forget it. Not worth the drama. Chapter 207. After Hong Yan left, Seer and Sora returned to the shrine. Sora spent the entire walk back trying to make sense of something. After turning it over in his head again and again, he still couldn't figure out what his master wanted with that dog demon's tooth. What's the point of some giant dumb tooth? He muttered sourly. Weapons made from dog demon fangs are highly effective, Seer replied, glancing at the sulking white tiger. Magical beast teeth were probably great too, but Sora hadn't even finished growing his adult set yet. And his teeth weren't nearly as long as a dog demon's. Seer stared a little too long, and Sora bowed his head silently. Should have kept his mouth shut. Was Master planning to yank his teeth out next? He'd rather Seer yank the dog's instead. It's pointless pulling teeth from someone under 3 years old. We'll wait until you're a few hundred, Seer sighed. Sora let out a small breath of relief. Just don't touch his teeth. Now, what kind of weapon should I make? We'll also need a blacksmith. Too bad there's no Totosai in this world. Seer fell into thought. The great dog general from his childhood memories had 3 legendary blades, Tesseiga, Tenseiga, and Sunga. They were all incredible weapons. Part of that was thanks to the dog demon's amazing teeth, but the real magic came from the one who forged them. Tesseiga and Tenseiga were made by Totosai. As for Sunga, Seer couldn't remember its origins. It had been ages since he'd watched that anime, and he'd only seen it because his cousin was a fellow anime nerd who also happened to be a talented artist. It was that cousin who'd first dragged him into the 2D world. Sunga. Kusanagi no Tsurugi. Are they connected somehow? Seer murmured. The names did sound vaguely similar. He couldn't get Sunga, but maybe he could get Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the real sacred blade from Japanese mythology. It should be in Heian-kyo somewhere, right? Back at the shrine, Gojo Haru was lounging in the sun, casually watching the ongoing training match between 2 girls and 2 dog cubs. A ribbon covered his eyes, so everyone assumed he was blind. When he sat there doing nothing, people just forgot he existed. As if the moment he lost his 6 eyes, he lost all worth. Gojo Haru wasn't offended. He just thought it was hilarious. People really were stupid. They knew a little about the 6 eyes, but not enough to realize that even without direct sight, he could still perceive cursed energy, and everyone's signature felt different. So when he sensed a certain someone dropping from the sky, he already knew who it was. The owner of this shrine. Do you know where I can find the Kusanagi no Tsurugi? Seer asked the moment he landed. Gojo Haru immediately knew what that meant. Seer never asked random questions. If he was asking, it meant he was planning something. And if he wanted Kusanagi, then... You mean the sword associated with Susanoo and the Yamata no Orochi? Haru confirmed. Yep. Seer nodded without hesitation. It's enshrined at Atsuda's shrine, Haru replied, casually waving his folding fan. The sword, one of the 3 imperial regalia, was the divine proof of Susanoo's legacy, one of the 3 noble children. I want it, Seer said bluntly. Haru paused. He had expected that, but it was still a little surprising how direct Seer was. If you want it, it's not impossible. Normally, mortals would have to curry favor with the shrine's priests and Miko, maybe even get familiar. But you... That crowd had already acknowledged Seer as a god, if only to save their own lives. He bore the name Tsukiyomi now. Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, and Susanoo were siblings, children of Izanagi. If the big brother came to retrieve his little brother's sword, who had the right to refuse? I'm pretty sure if you just barged in and demanded it, no one would stop you, Gojo Haru said with a smile. That easy? Seer frowned, sounding disappointed. If it was that simple, then the sword didn't feel all that legendary. Well, for you, sure. But that's only because... Gojo Haru trailed off. You're terrifying. Everyone saw Seer not as a man, but a calamity in human form. They feared him like they feared curses or gods. No one dared challenge him. It wasn't the same as Gojo Haru, who was still bound by human laws. Looks like I'll need to make a trip, Seer said with a sigh. Atsuta Shrine was nearly 200 kilometers away. In a world without cars or trains, that was a trek. Fortunately, he had cursed technique, blue from Gojo Satoru's inherited abilities. Gojo Haru gave him a faint smile. He could already imagine the shrine priests pissing themselves the moment they saw Seer. Some of them had participated in that original failed raid, after all. That dog demon's back again, Haru said, glancing at the sky. Don't shift into human form. Stay small, Seer said coldly. The massive dog demon had been about to transform, but the moment he heard the order, he shrank back down and landed obediently. He plopped the fang down in front of them. The now shrunken Hanyan sat on his haunches, tail sweeping the ground. He looked like the perfect noble pet. Way prettier than the other two brats. Planning to make a weapon out of that? Gojo Haru asked. He could guess what Seer was up to. Warriors had long used demon bones to forge blades, and hides to make armor. But high-level demons weren't so easy to harvest. Usually, the human became the meal. I'm considering it, but it's not for me, Seer shrugged. Mero didn't have a weapon. Neither did the girl who'd chosen the Tachi. He could make something for both. The rest would be souvenirs. 4 usable fangs. If they were lucky, 2 blades might come out of it. Problem is, there aren't any blacksmiths left who can handle something like this, Gojo Haru warned. Demon-grade materials couldn't be forged by regular humans. A normal hammer would just shatter. The backlash might even kill the craftsman on the spot. No? Seer frowned. He had the hardest part already, the material. And now no one could use it. Don't tell him he had to learn forging himself. He'd probably destroy all 4 teeth just trying. Not just anyone can touch our stuff, Hongyan said proudly. That's why demon-forged weapons were so rare. Not because of lack of supply, but lack of survival. Troublesome, Seer sighed. Guess he'd have to start with the Kusanagi sword. Mostly because it sounded awesome, and the name carried weight. The other 2 imperial regalia? The mirror and the Magatama? Less cool. Let's go, Seer said, turning to Hanyan. When we get there, don't transform. And stay away from humans. He didn't trust the mutt to behave. Nor did he trust his 2 shrine maidens not to fall for the mutt. He wasn't about to watch some dumb romance blossom under his roof. I'm not interested in humans, Hongyan said stiffly. He had seen many beautiful yokai in his day, foxes, tanuki, even dragons. Humans were fragile, temporary. Hongyan thought back to one specific human girl he'd met. She was just a child the first time they crossed paths. Called him God, then ran off. She came back as a teen to apologize. Then again as a married woman, with her husband in tow. Later, she returned as a mother with her children, saying, "There's a dog god on this mountain." Finally, she visited alone as an old woman. That was the last time. She never returned again. Demons can sleep for centuries. Humans can't. He didn't love her, but he remembered her. Just because she called him God. He'd sworn back then never to fall for a human. They lived too short. Their deaths were too painful. Yeah, I've heard that one before, Seer scoffed. That line always aged poorly. Come on. You're coming with me. Before the dog could protest, Seer scooped him up, hopped on Sora's back, and took to the sky. Put me down. I'm a great demon. Hongyan was red with rage, literally. His fur flushed a fiery crimson. Huh. You change color? That's cool, Seer said mildly. If you're going to keep yelling, at least introduce yourself. Like, I'm the great demon Hongyan. Or something. Shut up. Hongyan covered his face. What great demon? What majestic yokai? He looked like a spoiled Pomeranian being carried by a lunatic. My name's Hongyan. What's yours? He asked suddenly. His first time asking a human's name. Don't demons keep their names secret? Only if you're worried about being bound. I'm giving it to you voluntarily. I want to be your friend. That caught Seer off guard for a moment. I don't need friends, he said flatly. You're just a defeated mutt. My shrine guard dog. But if you insist, you can call me Tsukiyomi. Or Tsukiyomi no Mikoto, if you wanted to get formal. Tsukiyomi no Mikoto? Hongyan choked. The moon god? One of the three noble children? Did he seriously just fight that guy? Sounds about right, Seer said coolly. Hongyan stared, overwhelmed. It made some sense. White hair. Blue eyes. Crescent markings. God-tier power. The real Tsukiyomi was a mystery. Maybe this really was him. By now, Atsuta Shrine came into view. Sora didn't slow down, he dove straight through the torii gate. Wait, I'm a demon. The barrier. Golden light shimmered as the barrier flared. Then instantly vanished. It didn't reject me. Hongyan was stunned. Atsuta Shrine's wards were powerful. Even touching them should have hurt. Was it because he was with the moon god? Who dares trespass? A priest burst from the building, robes flying, ready to shout. He caught sight of Seer. And instantly shut up. Chapter 208. The boy who brazenly broke into the shrine with two demons raised his eyebrows and looked at the priest with a half-smile. What were you about to say? The priest paused. He wanted to question who this madman was who dared intrude on the shrine uninvited, but did he actually have the guts to say it? It wasn't as if he hadn't seen the boy kill before. All the sorcerers in Heian-kyo had united once. Among them were the Goju clan, the Abe clan, the Fujiwara clan, and even priests and shrine maidens from across the country. Of the nearly 10,000 strong, many of them powerful, at least a tenth died on the spot. The blood from that battlefield reportedly still hasn't washed away. And to avoid further bloodshed, the spiritual leaders of Heian-kyo, including the emperor himself, had no choice but to formally acknowledge the boy's divine identity, granting him the name and domain of Tsukiyomi. They even built a new shrine for him and erected statues in his image. Now, when people saw him, they were expected to kneel. His presence demanded more reverence than even the emperor. The priest's face twisted with shame and resentment as the memory resurfaced. But the shrine maiden who arrived afterward bowed deeply and asked respectfully, "Your Highness, what brings you here today?" She wore her long black hair tied with a red ribbon, dressed in the standard white and crimson garb, a ceremonial sword in hand. The blade glinted coldly, as though steeped in blood. "Obviously, I came here for something," Seer replied with a smirk. "But before that..." He smiled faintly and added, "Didn't I already make it clear what you're supposed to do when you see me? Those who are self-righteous never listen. Those with empty heads always hold them high. And frankly, ears that don't listen and heads that think nothing are both entirely useless to me." Almost immediately, both the priest and shrine maiden understood. Seer, the usurper of the Tsukiyomi godhood, had made it known from the start. Anyone who saw him was to kneel. And they hadn't. Realizing their mistake, both dropped to their knees without hesitation. But they were too late. The moment Seer's sentence ended, a wave of invisible pressure lashed past them. A deep, jagged crack split the earth in front of the shrine. Their scalps bled. They looked up in shock to discover that a large patch of their hair had been sheared clean off. "You knelt too slowly," Seer said coolly. Next time, be more self-aware. Don't wait for a reminder. And with that, he walked straight into the shrine. The priest and maiden, stunned and humiliated, touched their bleeding scalps. The shock and shame hit so hard they passed out on the spot. The Totsuka no Tsurugi, better known as the Ama no Murakumo no Tsurugi or Kusanagi no Tsurugi, rested inside the shrine. Nothing guarded it, not even a single seal. "Is that the sword you're after?" Hongyan asked, eyeing the sacred blade atop a raised platform. It was said that with one swing, it could slay demons and exorcise curses alike. "Doesn't look like much," he muttered, reaching out for it. A demon laying hands on a divine weapon? The irony wasn't lost on him. But before his fingers touched the hilt, the sword buzzed violently. A surge of cursed energy, or divine fury, lashed out. Blood sprayed from his hand. The blade absorbed it greedily, and its dull sheen turned bright and luminous. "What a nasty sword," Hongyan muttered, licking his wounds. "Seems like it's developed sentience," Seer said, eyes gleaming with interest. The legend of weapon spirits wasn't new. The idea that magical swords could choose their wielders was as old as mythology itself. "And clearly, it's chosen me," he added, reaching toward the hilt. The sword vibrated again, harder this time, but Seer didn't bleed. The cursed energy whirled around him, failing to penetrate. In fact, he gripped the hilt easily. "See? Clearly fated," Seer said smugly. "Are you sure?" Hongyan watched the blade tremble with what looked suspiciously like panic, rather than joy. If it could speak, it would probably scream. "Of course," Seer said. "It's shaking with excitement." Then he casually swung the blade. A sweep of invisible force cut every item in the hall clean in two. "Definitely better than snake-cutting blade. I'll go with sky-tearing cloud," he added as the palace began collapsing. Seer left the crumbling shrine with the sword in hand, still buzzing in resistance. "Don't be difficult," Seer warned. "I don't care if you're divine or forged in myth, if you can't be used, you're scrap metal." The blade trembled once. And went still. Hongyan was baffled. Wasn't the Kusanagi sword tied to Susanoo and Amaterasu? What did it have to do with Tsukiyomi? Yet it had submitted. Just like it recognized its master. Back at Seer's shrine, he tossed the sword to Gojo Haru. The blade nearly grazed his face before embedding itself in the ground, quivering madly. "What are you doing?" Gojo Haru said calmly. "Pick it up. Test it," Seer said with a shrug. Gojo obliged. The moment his hand gripped the hilt, the sword stopped shaking, docile and obedient. "The son of Amaterasu's favor?" Seer sneered. Now the truth clicked into place. The sword wasn't responding to godhood. It was responding to the 6 eyes. The Kusanagi sword's reaction wasn't reverence for Seer's divine name, it was resonance with the bloodline of the Gojo clan. 6 eyes. Born to balance the world's curse energy. "Artifacts just like you more than me, huh?" Seer muttered as the sword floated back into his hand, submissive once more. "It must be fate," Gojo Haru smiled. "More like bad luck if it hadn't liked me," Seer deadpanned. Nearby, 2 small dog demons ran up barking furiously. Hongyan understood their whining immediately. "Master. Why didn't you save us earlier? Why are you small again? Did you lose to humans too? Didn't you say you were the strongest? Get lost." Hongyan whacked them both away with his tail. At least their fur was thick enough not to take damage. "You kidnapped these 2 just to spar with a couple of girls," he growled at Seer. "What else would I want them for?" Seer shrugged. "They're only good for that." "Fair," Hongyan admitted. "The girls will die in less than a century. A couple of years is plenty." "Exactly. They'll need new sparring partners eventually," Seer agreed. "But preferably human ones," Hongyan added. Humans know how to deal with humans. A demon may sharpen you, but only a human can teach you how to fight like one. There's no one the right age in HxH, Seer sighed. And no adult was going to agree to duel children. Hongyan's gaze turned to the girl's weapons, a massive tachi and a bow, both taller than the girls holding them. Those are just deadweight right now, he scoffed. Yeah. Mero, Seer called. The blond young man stepped forward immediately. Yes, sir? Have them train with sword swings and horse stance bucket drills. An hour each. Every day. Mero nodded. Understood. The girls made no complaint. Compared to others at the shrine, they were obedient. Which could not be said for everyone. What's with those lunatics brawling in the corner? Hongyan asked. Scholars, Seer replied with a flat face. Academic madness. They fought over enchantment theory and argued into the night. Studying what? Barrier techniques, Seer said simply. I want a proper domain set near the Torii Gate. Anyone who enters without permission will die. The white-haired boy said it with absolute indifference. Don't gods normally create barriers themselves? Hongyan frowned. Seer said nothing. Because in truth, he didn't know how. Chapter 209. I wonder if there are any born mutants in HxH. Seer ignored Hongyan and changed the subject casually. Why aren't you answering? The dog demon, who had no understanding of human social cues and always spoke bluntly, looked confused. Ahem. Gojo Haru cleared his throat and pretended not to hear. There are many strange people in HxH. Depends on what kind of strange you mean, Gojo Haru replied. I'm looking for someone with 2 faces and 4 arms, Seer said. He still hadn't seen Sukuna appear. He couldn't have simply ceased to exist, right? If it's a demon, you might still find one. But if it's a human... I've never seen anyone like that in HxH, Gojo Haru said after thinking it over. If there were really someone with that appearance, the rumors would have spread across the city, but nothing like that had surfaced. Wait, there was something. I think the Tachibana family once had a son like that, Gojo Haru recalled. That was about 10 years ago. The Tachibana family had a daughter whose belly grew unusually large during pregnancy. When she gave birth, everyone assumed it had been twins. But when the baby was born, something was clearly wrong. Only one baby boy was born, but with 4 arms. He was covered in blood, eyes wide open, and his irises were red from birth. The sibling who was supposed to be born with him amounted to just a few half-formed bones. As soon as the boy was born, he was seen as an evil spirit. The Tachibana family planned to kill him, but someone intervened, Gojo Haru said. Who stopped them? Seer asked. No one knows. His identity was never made public, Gojo Haru replied. Only that he was an old monk. He claimed the boy was actually a fallen god, cast out from heaven for his sins, and that he could be reformed, maybe even return to Takamagahara someday. Seer grimaced. And the Tachibana family believed that? He asked incredulously. Of course they did, Gojo Haru laughed. Which sounds better, saying your daughter gave birth to a demon, or saying she birthed a disgraced god? Obviously, the latter. The family eagerly embraced the monk's version. The monk said the child needed to be raised in seclusion near a temple and influenced with scripture, since keeping him around mortals would only make things worse, Gojo Haru added, his memory sharpening. So the boy was taken to the temple? Do you know which one? Seer pressed. If this really was Sukuna, he was probably still just a teenager. That would explain why he hadn't made waves yet. It was never made public, but... Gojo Haru paused. If I had to guess, I'd say Zenrinji Temple. Did you go check? Seer asked. Given what he'd seen of Gojo Haru's personality, he figured the man absolutely would have investigated. I did, Haru said with a nod. But I didn't see anyone like that there. The Tachibana family hadn't followed up either, likely pretending the child never existed. So we're back at a dead end, Seer muttered, annoyed. Why are you so interested in him? Gojo Haru asked, folding his fan. Before Seer could respond, Haru continued, do you already know him? The white-haired boy raised an eyebrow. This boy from the future wasn't supposed to know about the two-faced one. Only a few in Heian-kyo even remembered. Unless thousands of years in the future, records of the boy must exist. He must have left behind something worth remembering. This boy is fated to me, Seer replied cryptically. What was he supposed to say? That this guy would one day massacre all of Heian-kyo, be resurrected 1,000 years later, and do it again? Oh, and that he kills curses just as efficiently as he kills humans. So it's someone important to history. Gojo Haru gave a lazy smile. Don't you want to test it, Seer? Maybe you could change history, Haru teased. And if I do, how will I return to my own time? Seer asked pointedly. Fair enough, Haru said with a sigh. To him, Seer was powerful enough to survive in any era, but clearly, Seer thought differently. It looks like a guest has arrived, Gojo Haru said, turning toward the shrine entrance. Seer's gaze followed. A boy wearing a woman's kimono walked up the shrine steps with his hands tucked in his sleeves. Behind him trailed a white-haired youth carrying a basket. I heard the strongest person in the capital is up here? The pink-haired boy asked. Yes, replied the white-haired boy, Ryomen, flatly. He supposedly crushed all of Kyoto by force and made the emperor build him a shrine here. Then I want to see this strongest man alive, the pink-haired boy said smugly as he passed through the red torii gate. Lord Tenrin, are you sure? Ryomen began. Shut up, Ryomen. Do you think I'll lose? The pink-haired boy asked. Of course not, my lord, Ryomen replied obediently. They entered the shrine. Outside, a group of spellcasters and onmyoji were drawing formations in the air and on the ground, occasionally breaking into heated debate. You people, Ryomen began, stepping forward. Without even looking up, one of them waved him off. Worshippers go that way. Exits the same. If you're here to fight, that way. What is this place? Ryomen narrowed his eyes. Were they prepared for intruders? Were there traps lying in wait? How interesting, Tenrin said, intrigued. He followed the directions given without hesitation. He hadn't killed anyone, yet. Perhaps because he sensed there was someone stronger up ahead. This is a bit too coincidental, isn't it? Seer murmured, eyes fixed on the approaching figure. Isn't that the person we were just talking about? Gojo Haru added, astonished. The newcomer had pink hair, 4 arms, and a muscular frame. On his face was a barely developed growth with 2 extra eyes, giving him 4 total. He looked bizarre, but not grotesque, almost like an eerie wall painting of some forgotten god. Double-faced Sukuna? Seer called out immediately. What's that supposed to mean? The pink-haired boy responded lazily. My name is Tenrin. Who's the strongest one here? His red eyes swept over Seer, Meru, Gojo Haru, and Hongyan. You here to challenge me? Seer asked with a smile. It's not a challenge. It's a demand, Tenrin said with a sneer. I command you to fight me. So arrogant. Was young Sukuna always this extra? Well, he was still plenty arrogant later too. No, Seer replied flatly. You're too weak right now. Sure, Sukuna would one day be a force to be reckoned with. But right now, he was just a kid. In the original timeline, this guy didn't go berserk until he was in his 20s or 30s. Seer mused internally. If you want to fight me, Seer said aloud, then make a name for yourself first. Beat the Onmyoji, the magicians of Heian Kyo. They're all my subordinates. Defeat them, and maybe then you'll be worthy. Do you have a domain? How many real battles have you fought? How many people have you killed? If you don't even have a track record, it's beneath me to entertain you. The pink-haired boy didn't reply, but the white-haired one looked furious on his behalf. Tenrin only chuckled. You make a good point, he said, looking around. Very well. When the Emperor builds a shrine for me, I'll come back and we'll fight. He turned and left without protest. There was something familiar about the white-haired boy's aura. Strange, considering anyone like that should have died already. Lord Tenrin, are we just leaving? Ryomen asked nervously. Ryomen, do you think any of the Fallen Heaven cult members got away? Tenrin asked. I'm not sure, sir, Ryomen replied. They were all supposed to be at the ceremony. Tenrin muttered. So where did that familiar energy come from? If there had been someone like that in the cult, it wouldn't have been so easy to destroy them. A bunch of old fools trying to control him? He scoffed. Back in the shrine, Mero frowned. That pink-haired boy gave him an instinctive sense of disgust. Fallen Heaven. I've heard of that before, Seer said, stroking his chin. The Zenin family investigated the Fallen Heaven sect, Gojo Haru said. Akira Zenin wanted to get my clan involved too. Does he have a connection to the sect? Seer asked. Their beliefs center around Susanoo. They aim to cultivate a vessel suitable for him to descend. I suspect that boy is their chosen one. So that's why I didn't find him at Zenrin Temple. Seer muttered. They must have handed him over to the cult. Judging by his name and attitude, he probably hadn't been traumatized, yet. He reminded Gojo Haru of himself as a young man. A boy praised as the son of God, full of arrogance and destined for loneliness. Chapter 210. You seem happy to see him. Hong Yan noticed the change in Seer's mood. Although he couldn't read human facial expressions, dogs had a natural instinct for sensing emotions. Seer's emotional state had noticeably lifted since seeing that boy. He didn't understand why. Wasn't it just a human with 4 arms and 4 eyes? That was admittedly rare, even bizarre. That guy is really human. Not a demon or a ghost? Hong Yan asked with a puzzled tone. Monsters with 3 heads and 6 arms weren't unheard of, but a human like that. In all his hundreds of years, he'd never seen someone so strange-looking. He's fully human, Gojo Haru replied instead. When it came to distinguishing races, the 6 eyes were unparalleled. Then it's amazing he's lived this long. Hong Yan muttered. Even half-demons who looked normal got hunted. This one looked more monstrous than actual monsters. How could he have survived among humans? He's a little older than I thought, Seer added thoughtfully. Though the boy looked like a teen, he stood over 2 meters tall, much taller than most adults. Even Seer himself, who was already 186 centimeters, was shorter by at least half a head. That kind of physique was clearly beyond normal human development. But I don't want to fight him now. He's not strong enough yet, Seer said, shaking his head. Sukuna hadn't earned the title King of Curses as a teenager. That name came much later, likely in his 20s or 30s. The version Seer remembered most vividly was the one who willingly sealed himself for 1,000 years. That cunning, terrifying version. It would take time for the current Sukuna to reach that level. The boy now was still just that, a boy. Also, Seer had another reason not to fight him. It had to do with his domain, Demon Suppressing Shrine. Techniques could overlap. Powers could mimic each other. But domains? They were always unique. So the moment Seer saw young Sukuna, the system sent him a prompt. Current character, Ryomen Sukuna, Growth Phase Domain Demon Suppressing Shrine, locked, unavailable against this target. In short, Seer couldn't use that domain against Sukuna. It only worked on Gojo Satoru. Perhaps this was the system's way of urging him to fully master and evolve his own abilities. Which meant he needed to forge a domain that was his, not borrowed. He'd once considered creating something like K-Space, an ultimate cognitive overload field, but quickly realized it wouldn't work. Even Infinite Void's ability to flood minds with information wasn't at the same level as the great unknowable powers it tried to mimic. Simply put, he wasn't that broken. I need an opponent. And he's actually the best choice, Seer admitted. Against most enemies, his two techniques and domains made battles one-sided. But against Sukuna? There was resistance. A challenge. Growth. There was no Gojo Satoru in this era. Gojo Haru wasn't Satoru's reincarnation, his domain was entirely different. Even if a soul reincarnated, if the domain didn't match, it wasn't truly the same person. But it's not time yet. He needs to grow. And people like him grow fastest through battle. So. Seer smiled. I'll wait. Sukuna wouldn't stay passive. He would fight, devour, grow. And the more powerful he became, the more cursed spirits and exorcists he fought, the better a rival he'd be. What a pity. Seer turned to Gojo Haru and sighed. It was too bad his domain wasn't Infinite Void. That would have made the challenge more symmetrical. Although the 6 eyes weren't useless. Sometimes, they could see through each other's vision, like they shared a single pair of eyes. Why are you looking at me like that? Gojo Haru muttered, sensing Seer's regretful gaze through the cloth over his eyes. He shouldn't be called Fallen Heaven. His name should be Ryomen Sukuna, Seer said. Fallen Heaven sounds too forced, nowhere near as iconic. Besides, he's not worthy of a cool name yet. Hong Yan, Seer suddenly said, turning to the dog demon. Can you do something for me? Speak. Hong Yan puffed out his chest with righteous bravado. We're all part of the same shrine now. Spread the word among the demon clans, Seer said, grinning. Ryomen Sukuna. It's him. The two-faced ghost and god. Startled birds scattered from the trees as terrified demons fled. Fallen Heaven, who had come hoping to challenge a few great demons for entertainment, looked at the empty landscape and frowned. This had happened countless times now. Wherever he went, weaker demons would panic, scream Ryomen Sukuna, and run. If they couldn't escape, they died. He chomped down on a demon arm and spat it out with disgust. Terrible taste. He licked the blood from his fingers and muttered, human meat tastes better. Li Mei. I want meat. As you command. The white-haired boy knelt in silence. Fighting and eating were the only sources of joy for Fallen Heaven. And nearby demon settlements always meant nearby human villages. Soon, he had another victim, a child, kidnapped in broad daylight. The villagers wept, then sent someone to the nearest city for help, praying that someone stronger could save them. Meanwhile, the village's young men gathered weapons and began their own search. They followed trails, discovered a cave once occupied by a demon, now littered with bones, including children's. The air stank of death and rot. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Monsters and spirits plagued the countryside. But this felt worse. Elsewhere, Fallen Heaven ran into a massive centipede demon, shiny, black, with countless legs. So you're Ryomen Sukuna? The demon sneered. Sure, Fallen Heaven said lazily, letting the name stick. It fit. Everyone was using it. Even that white-haired shrine boy had called him that. Might as well take the name. If the real Sukuna ever showed up, he'd just kill him. He slaughtered the centipede demon, leaving only bits and pieces behind. Word spread quickly. A new ghost god with 2 faces and 4 arms named Ryomen Sukuna was rising in power, and he liked eating humans. The news soon reached the capital. Word travels fast. Seer was resting at the shrine, pondering his future domain. He'd been reviewing memories, looking for inspiration. A concept was forming. "I still don't get why you had me spread that name," Hongyan said, frowning. He had dutifully shared the news, that a strong 2-faced, 4-armed being had appeared. "Because I don't like his name," Seer replied. So the next time someone called him that, he'd know exactly who they meant. "Looks like the capital will send investigators soon," Gojo Haru said as he walked in, his robe now styled like Seer's, graceful and flowing. "Who will they send?" Seer asked. "On Myoji, of course. It's being labeled a supernatural threat." "They won't return," Seer said flatly. "And what if they send a curse user?" "Same result." Seer looked at Gojo Haru with cold amusement. "Is there a difference between killing an onmyoji and killing a curse user?" "Not really." Gojo Haru closed his fan and smiled wryly. When someone was that strong, what they were didn't matter. Sure enough, a week later, the news came. The onmyoji sent to investigate had died. Their spiritual tools, charms tied to their life, had crumbled to ash. "What do you think the Emperor will do now?" Seer asked. "He'll get a divination, then form a special task force from the families," Gojo Haru said, unconcerned. "Just like they once did for Seer." "And they'll all die," Seer added. "Until enough people die. The Emperor won't realize how pointless their resistance is. Just like with you." Gojo Haru tapped his fan against his palm. "That day is coming soon," Seer said softly. After all, in the original story, Sukuna killed his enemies so thoroughly that they were forced to worship him as a god. Exactly as Seer had done here. Short pause time. "Apparently, if I don't talk here, the AI overlords get cranky. So hi YouTube algorithm, we love transformation. Okay, back to the story." Chapter 211. None of the people sent by the various families to investigate the Ryomen Sukuna incident returned. Most of the Shikigami were destroyed, and only one managed to escape back to Kyoto due to a unique ability. But after delivering his message, he collapsed on the spot, dissolving into firefly-like particles of light. Even then, his message was hardly coherent. He just muttered madly. "Dead. All dead. Everyone. All killed by that thing. That monster." Everyone in Kyoto who heard the news fell into stunned silence. The behavior was eerily familiar. Not long ago, the being now called Seer had rampaged through Kyoto and was dubbed a monster. But now, people had begun to change their tone, referring to him as a god. And now, another figure, Ryomen Sukuna, was becoming infamous beyond Kyoto's borders. The next step would be his entry into the city itself. Ryomen Sukuna was a legendary figure. A ghost. A god of destruction. Was this another god-level existence? If his strength truly matched Seer's, then was there anyone left in Kyoto capable of defeating him? Seer had already devastated the capital's elite. If another such entity emerged, none of the noble families were willing to take the lead. When the emperor inquired, each clan claimed they lacked available personnel. Excuse after excuse wore the emperor's patience thin. Someone eventually suggested what they all had quietly considered: they worship a god, don't they? That god now lives among them, in the shrine on the mountain nearby. Isn't that the purpose of building shrines and offering reverence to a deity? For protection? Then let that deity protect them now. So, they acted. They visited the shrine with extravagant offerings, gold, silver, and jewelry, and humbly requested aid from the moon god. "You want me to fight Ryomen Sukuna?" Seer sat at the feet of his statue, legs dangling from the edge of the high platform. He casually sifted through a box of pearls in his lap. To him, they looked cheap. The luster was dull, the shape irregular, and they weren't even properly polished. Back home, even the most basic of his mother's pearls cost 6 figures. The finest set went for tens of millions at auction. His standards had long since been refined. "These are only good for grinding into powder," he muttered, pushing the box aside. He remembered how a childhood friend, whose family ran a luxury gem business, would grind such pearls into powder to make pearl paste. "Please, Your Highness. Please destroy the monster tormenting us." The envoy, chosen by the Kyoto political elite, stood sweating, bowing deeply. He was neither low nor high in rank. The top nobles wouldn't debase themselves to beg. The lower ones didn't have the qualifications. So this man had been pushed forward as a compromise. Seer gave a dismissive snort at the uneven pile of tributes. "So you'll help us?" the man asked, hope flooding his expression. "No. Go back." Seer flicked his sleeve, sweeping the offerings off the altar. "Why?" The man flinched, hurt and confused. "You built this shrine and offer gifts only because you were too weak to stop me. You groveled to spare Kyoto. You chose appeasement. From beginning to end, it was your plea, not mine. So I owe you nothing. You offer bribes and want me to be your enforcer. Are you stupid? Or do you really believe I'm some gullible deity?" In the old tales, gods were often deceived by humans, fooled into handing over treasures or falling in love. "Leave." Seer's smile vanished, voice sharp as frost. The envoy, trembling, scrambled out of the shrine. "I think I get it now," Gojo Haru said, emerging from behind the statue. "The way you said his name. It was familiar. Like you'd met him before. If I'm right, everything he's doing is already recorded in the future's history, under the name Ryomen Sukuna." "When I called him that, I wasn't wrong," Seer said calmly. "If I hadn't shown up here, he'd be the one with all the records. The sole legend. The King of Curses, they call him that in the future. Sorcerers and cursed spirits alike acknowledge the title." "So he really leaves a bloody trail behind," Gojo Haru murmured. "You don't get a name like that without killing so many people. They have no choice but to respect you." "And I won't change history," Seer added softly. "Whatever happens must happen. You can stand apart from history. But we, those living it, can't help being swept away," Haru said, sighing. "What about me? How do I end?" he asked with a grin. "No records mention you," Seer replied truthfully. "But I imagine you die. If Sukuna attacks Kyoto, you'll fight. And if Sukuna wins, you'll die." Gojo Haru had already come to the same conclusion. "I just hope it snows the day I die," he mused wistfully. "It rarely does in Kyoto, but that would be beautiful." "If you die unjustly, maybe there'll be a miracle snowfall in June," Seer teased. "Yeah, right," Haru laughed. "My death won't be unjust. Just expected." Back in Kyoto, the nobles carried on as if nothing was happening, banquets, poems, perfumed letters, and idle pleasures. As though Ryomen Sukuna wasn't inching closer by the day. His legend grew. His body count surged. Sorcerers, onmyoji, curse users, cursed spirits, demons, he killed them all indiscriminately. He faced the world alone. Some villages feared him. Others built shrines in his name. It seemed that, after exhausting his killing spree outside, Sukuna now had his sights set on Kyoto. "Reports say he's approaching the capital with his followers," Haru told Seer. "Only one enemy matters, Sukuna. He won't let anyone else fight," Seer replied. "He's only bringing a few with him." Haru seemed unconcerned. "Good thing I warned the dog tribe to stay put. If they run into him, they'll get eaten alive," Hongyan muttered. Suddenly, cheering erupted outside. "We did it! We finally did it!" A swarm of disheveled scholars, looking like they hadn't slept or combed their hair in days, burst in. "The barrier! We finished it!" Suwu followed them out, eyes gleaming. "The barrier will produce a poisonous fog within the first space, deterring and killing intruders. The shrine will be in the second space, completely unaffected. Those who die in the first space will fuel the barrier itself. We just need to draw the formation from the torii to the shrine." "Perfect. Let's begin," Seer said, smiling. "Once it's done, you can finally leave." The scholars wept with joy. "Maybe this mountain should be called Wushan now," Gojo Haru joked. "Wushan for Vujin. And the shrine? The Merino Shrine." "Not bad," Seer agreed. "Doesn't matter what it's called. In 1,000 years, who knows if it'll even be here." "Humans love naming things," Hongyan muttered as he headbutted a ball across the clearing. Every time he'd met a human during his mountain naps, they gave him some new name. Xiaobai, Dabai, Baiyu. Names from people who thought they owned him. "Most people only name what they think they possess," Haru noted. "Selfish," Hongyan snorted. Nearby, the two little girls were drenched in sweat, swinging practice swords. "Those two won't get strong, no matter how hard they train," Hongyan muttered. "Doesn't matter. I don't need them strong, just obedient. They're just mountain wardens," Seer said coldly. "Not for long," Hongyan murmured. "Humans burn out fast." Chapter 212. "Go, fetch." Seer tossed the plush ball in his hand and gestured toward Hongyan. Once a majestic great demon, Hongyan now remained in his shrunken pup form inside the shrine, small, fluffy, about the same size as the two younger pups, but undeniably better looking. The stronger a dog demon, the more striking its appearance. Yet right now, all anyone could say was that he looked cute. Embarrassed by the indignity, Hongyan just squatted on the ground, wagging his tail reluctantly. What did they take him for? A plaything? One of the cubs? As a mature demon with hundreds of years of dignity, he had no interest in something like this. "Dogs are cuter when they're playful," Seer sighed, pulling out a larger ball of yarn. It had been meant for Kong, but that tiger had grown rapidly. "Go have fun." He tossed the ball, and the great white tiger pounced on it without a shred of pride. "You're awfully carefree." Gojo Haru descended lightly from the sky and took a seat beside Seer. He'd just returned from a strategy meeting, a pre-war gathering, really. Ever since Ryomen Sukuna showed up in Kyoto, the powers that be had decided they couldn't let him inside the city. Why? Because Sukuna ate people. Seer might be dangerous, but at least he didn't eat humans. Getting into a fight with him might kill you. Getting into a fight with Sukuna meant dying and becoming his next meal. Nobody could accept that. What's more, Sukuna wasn't the first to disrupt the balance. Seer had done it once before, so everyone was on edge about this second potential upheaval. This time, they decided to act first. Their plan: intercept Sukuna long before he reached Kyoto. No stalling, no negotiations, just immediate, all-out assault. They summoned Gojo Haru for this strategy not just because he was powerful, but because they thought he might also get Seer involved. While everyone knew Gojo Haru had some mysterious connection to Seer, no one dared make it too obvious. Still, they asked. And Gojo Haru simply smiled and said, "If he liked me so much, would he have gouged out my 6 eyes?" That shut everyone up quickly. After that, no one spoke to him again during the meeting. Gojo Haru said nothing either. Not that it mattered. He already knew how this would end. Some would die. Others might survive. Many weren't strong enough to be there at all. He offered no advice, no opinion, just smiled and said, "That sounds good," to every proposal. He was the first to leave when it ended. If he'd stayed, he might have burst their bubble, like saying, "None of this matters. You're all going to lose." Strength, after all, could shatter any tactic. If you could be schemed against, you weren't strong enough to begin with. Now, he sat beside Seer, recounting the meeting like it was some dark joke. "So, you're going to?" Seer asked. "Of course. There's no way I wouldn't." Gojo Haru shrugged. "You know you'll die?" Seer's tone was light, but his expression wasn't. "It's just the future you've described. Nothing to worry about." Gojo Haru smiled. "If you had to die anyway, at least let it be in battle." "I'm kind of grateful, honestly. I'll die before I even age a day." His smile was sincere. No regret. No fear. Just Gojo Haru being Gojo Haru. "But from now on, we should probably treat every meeting as our last," he added with a grin. "That's wildly ominous," Seer sighed. At that moment, they were enjoying hot pot together, steam rising between them. Seer couldn't stand the Heian lifestyle of fasting in 2 meals a day. He needed 4, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and afternoon tea. Fortunately, Gojo Haru wasn't one to follow rules. The 2 young girls didn't dare complain either. And the demon dogs? They were dogs. They ate when food was around. Even Hong Yan, in his shrunken form, was pawing at a bowl of cooked meat. Sukuna arrived earlier than expected, which meant Gojo Haru left sooner than planned. "Want me to bury your body here?" Seer asked casually. "Your cursed energy would sustain the barrier nicely." "I'm not even dead yet," Gojo Haru replied, exasperated. "But fine, I'll tell Sukuna to send me your way after he kills me. I'll wait for the deliveryman Ryomen Sukuna to bring your remains," Seer responded just as flippantly. When the battle began and the battlefield was covered in chaos, Gojo Haru had nearly forgotten that joke. But as allies fell one after another, and only he and Sukuna were left standing, he remembered it. How was he supposed to die? Sukuna's physique was insane: 4 arms for faster hand seals, 2 mouths for double chance, and a reversed curse technique that healed him instantly. Gojo Haru had the limitless technique and, thanks to the 6 eyes, nearly infinite efficiency in cursed energy. In the end, neither could beat the other. He wasn't dead. So why had he believed he would die? Back at the shrine, he sat in front of Seer, more confused than ever. "I thought Sukuna had something like your space slash that could bypass limitless," Gojo Haru muttered. "But he didn't. That's the only reason I survived." "Oh. Right. That slash comes from mimicking Maharaga. That's 1,000 years too soon," Seer nodded. "If he had that now, you'd be dead." "What a waste. Your body would have powered the barrier nicely," Seer added with a theatrical sigh. "Zenin Akira is dead," Gojo Haru said quietly. Seer fell silent for a moment. "Should we bring his body here?" "The Zenin clan would never allow it," Gojo Haru snorted. "Even if it were ashes, they'd still want to hoard it." "So basically, Kyoto's combat force is almost wiped out?" Seer asked. 9 out of 10, Gojo Haru confirmed. "No wonder sorcerers declined, and Onmyoji disappeared by your time," Seer murmured. "All the powerful ones were dead. The aristocrats would survive, of course. They always did. And over time, their power would become entrenched. This was how society rotted from the top. Just like Gojo Satoru, a noble who sided with commoners and was abandoned by his peers. Even the strongest can't escape social class. It's not like they don't have backup plans," Seer added with a sneer. "Maybe," Gojo Haru replied, disinterested. Sukuna, seemingly satisfied with the destruction, quieted down. He stopped attacking random people. Meetings resumed in Kyoto. This time, the politicians decided to offer Sukuna the same terms they'd once offered Seer. A shrine. Sacrifices. Official recognition. Let him eat humans. Sure. Just call it a ritual. And when it came time to deliver these terms, Gojo Haru was chosen, of course. No one else would come back alive. When Gojo Haru finally found Sukuna, he relayed the offer. The Emperor is willing to build you a shrine and worship you, he said blandly. Same as that fake moon god? Sukuna asked. If you want, Gojo Haru replied. No. I want one better. Sukuna grinned wickedly. I'll tell them. Anything else? Yeah. Tell that guy I'm coming when my shrine's done. He still owes me a fight. Sukuna licked his lips. Anything else? Nope. Just make sure mine's better than his. Then his red eyes gleamed. What about you? Want a rematch? And for a second, Gojo Haru froze. Those 4 red eyes, he'd seen them before. When he first met Seer. He'd wondered back then why the boy had 4 red eyes. Now, he wasn't so sure it was a coincidence. Chapter 213. Although confused, Gojo Haru didn't say anything. He simply left with the doubts lingering in his heart. With his speed, if he wanted to go, even Ryomen Sukuna couldn't stop him. And Sukuna made no attempt to. The King of Curses had likely had enough fun over the past few days and was ready to remain dormant for a while. His agreement to Kyoto's peace proposal was, for the time being, a huge relief for those living in fear. Gojo Haru's only job now was to deliver that news. Whatever happened next was no longer his concern. The same people who had experienced this once already should have no problem repeating the process. It's good news that he's so cooperative. But if it has to be better than the last one. As the nobles recalled the conditions set by Seer, their expressions dimmed. After all, the materials for the moon god's shrine statue had come from Seer himself. The nobles' own offerings weren't up to standard. And now they were expected to outdo that. Impossible. Their joy at Sukuna's compliance quickly turned to dread. Gojo Haru, however, didn't care whether they could manage or not. He returned to the Gojo estate and was relieved to find it still intact. While some familiar faces were gone, the family as a whole had survived. A few top sorcerers had died, but the clan was far from ruined. In families like this, new children would be born soon enough. It was just a matter of time before they rose to power. Lord Haru. Servants knelt as he passed. Gojo Haru didn't stop. He walked past them silently and headed next to the Zenin clan's estate. The Zenin residence was far more chaotic than his own. With Zen and Akira dead, a power vacuum had opened. And now, internal struggles for the head position were unfolding with relentless ferocity. Gojo Haru took one look at the infighting and veered toward a quiet courtyard at the edge of the estate. There, a woman with long black hair knelt under the eaves in pink robes. 4 maids bowed silently behind her. "Where is Tsukasa?" Gojo Haru asked. The woman slowly raised her head, her gaze unfocused. "It's Lord Haru," she said softly. Her brown eyes were dull and blind. Zenin Akira had died at 32. Compared to Gojo Haru, the famously untouchable son of God, Akira had led a more conventional life, marrying early and fathering a child who was now 12. "Even Lord Haru is here. Lord Akira hasn't returned?" she asked gently. No one had informed her. Despite being the head's wife, her blindness had made her a forgotten shadow. "He died a few days ago," Gojo Haru said after a pause. The woman was stunned. She had always believed her exceptional husband would return. Now she was being told that wouldn't happen. "They've already begun fighting over who will replace him," Haru added. "And Tsukasa. He's not in a good position." Tsukasa had inherited a different technique, not the 10 shadows, and his talent paled in comparison to his father's. At 12, Akira had defeated a grade 1 curse. Haru had slain special grades. Tsukasa could barely handle a grade 3, and even that was difficult. If he wants to become the new clan head, it won't be easy. The position must be his, the woman said firmly, though her tone remained soft. For Akira's sake, please help him. She bowed deeply, her forehead pressing to her hands. Mother. A boy in a white hunter's robe stepped in. His clothes were torn, and bruises marked his face, but his smile was bright. I killed a grade 3 curse today. Soon I'll be able to try grade 2. He stopped, seeing Gojo Haru. Ah, Lord Haru. Are you speaking with my mother? Come here, his mother said gently. He knelt by her side, carefully adjusting his robe to hide the blood and dirt. Please, Lord Haru, the woman repeated. Gojo Haru sighed. He had no interest in interfering with family matters. If Akira hadn't been one of the few people he genuinely respected, he wouldn't be here at all. If life here becomes unbearable, you can come live at the Gojo estate, he said, fanning himself lightly. He couldn't do much, but he could offer sanctuary. The woman collapsed to the floor the moment he left. Tsukasa caught her and helped her up. Mother. Did you already know? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. But her body had begun to weaken. She stopped eating. Her skin grew thin. Her eyes became glassy. The doctors could only offer grim news, she doesn't have long. A few more days at most. It was heartbreak, they said. Nothing to be done. Tsukasa made a decision. Bring me the curse master who handles dreams. I want her last dream to be a happy one. I heard the head of the Zenin family is choosing a wife at this banquet. Master Akira. What kind of person is he? He's one of the top 3 geniuses in the Jujutsu world. After Seimei and Haru, he's next. Handsome too. I wish I could see him. The girl's soft voice carried sadness. She was blind. And she had no expectations of being chosen. Until a voice called out, that one. It was emotionless. But she had been seen. Back in the present. How long can she live? Tsukasa asked, watching his sleeping mother. 3 days, the doctor said. Tsukasa dismissed everyone. Alone with her, he knelt and gripped her cold hand. Silent tears rolled down his cheeks. Don't leave me alone. Please. Mother. Zenin Akira's son, Zenin Tsukasa, turned his dying mother into a curse. She obeys him completely. Gojo Haru shared the update with Seer. The monster, once a gentle blind woman, now resembled a shadowy spider with limb-like tendrils. Yet Tsukasa still called her mother with tenderness. Help me kill them, he had said, and the curse obeyed. A companion curse user, Seer muttered. He's like a twisted version of Yuta. Pure love in one case. Parental dependence in another. If Zenin Akira knew his wife had become a curse. Seer shook his head. He'd crawl out of hell just to kill his own son. The clan wants to kill them both. I stopped them, Gojo Haru said with a sigh. He hadn't wanted to interfere, but he couldn't stand by either. Akira really left me 2 big headaches, he muttered. If he could, he'd drag his friend back from the dead just to punch him. Chapter 214. It's really baffling how easily people can form curses like this. Seer's tone was full of confusion. Whether it's pure love or filial piety. Still, carrying a special grade curse around with you is undeniably cool. He was obsessed. Even though it had been 2 or 3 years since he arrived in this world, the core of Seer's personality remained unchanged. His body had grown, but his soul seemed frozen at the moment of his death. Because of that, He could do many things with ease that so-called mature people would never dare to touch. Gojo Haru, confident to the point of arrogance in his own strength, even said that if Seer gave him a 500-meter head start, he'd still be able to kill him. Naturally, he agreed without hesitation. Humans really are capable of doing things that even demons find terrifying, Hong Yan muttered, his fur bristling. It's said the mother and daughter ate bugs and rats alive in the room. But the mother couldn't bear to eat them, so the girl ate everything herself. When Gojo Haru tracked the remnants of the curse energy, he discovered something unexpected. His target had gone from 1 to 2. So technically, I met a father and daughter, Gojo Haru said thoughtfully. The fog on the mountain was thick, nothing unusual here. This is only the second time I've seen something like this, Seer commented with a strange look. When someone with immense cursed energy truly curses a dying person from the heart, the outcome can be unpredictable. There's no point in keeping them around, Seer shrugged. The two girls? Gojo Haru nodded toward them. Can oral curses even work in this context? He asked, pausing a moment, clearly weighing the feasibility. If you can't even talk about love anymore, love becomes the most useless thing of all. The world really had changed. Father? The monster stared blankly, bulging fish-like eyes flicking toward the man, her voice disturbingly childlike. Even as a dog demon, the canine traits were evident. The girl had once been very cute. Still hungry? Then. Eat me too. Half an hour passed, and still no sign of the shrine. Only children can express feelings this pure. Adults can't give themselves to someone so unreservedly, Seer sighed. At their speed, they should have reached the shrine ages ago. Human emotions were terrifying. But sadly, even with these parameters, I can't get a portable curse of my own, Seer grumbled. Why eat half the village, though? He muttered after hearing the tale. The barrier's complete, someone cried before collapsing, legs giving out. After a final strange shout, they passed out cold. They'd probably need a week to recover. She used to be a very, very sweet girl. Gojo Haru's expression twisted with pain as he spoke. Now, it was an ugly, swollen monster. Purple slime drooled from its mouth as it clutched a thin middle-aged man, screaming, "Hungry, I'm hungry. Stay with me forever, don't die." Seer guessed aloud. Honestly, that's not bad. He stepped outside just as the barrier activated, a haze of white mist rising around them. Fog enveloped the path ahead. Soon, they couldn't see their feet or each other. Will this kind of thing still happen 1,000 years from now? Gojo Haru asked. Maybe. Because of love, he answered himself. Gojo Haru observed the grotesque curse with skepticism. It's hard to believe she was once cute, he muttered. Villagers thought they were colluding with demons to murder people, Seer added. Let's use this to test the barrier's strength, he said, pointing at the monsters with cold interest. Behind the mist, huge glowing eyes blinked awake. Deliver them down the mountain, Seer ordered. One for each servant, even the ones conscripted by noble families. They returned later, pale and disoriented, clearly having lost years of life to spiritual exhaustion. It looked like they'd witnessed mass death. Seems like just the ability to see spirits was enough for those villagers to imprison the mother and child, Gojo Haru recounted bitterly. Many curses are born from human evil, Hong Yan muttered. That's disgusting, Seer said bluntly. Gojo Haru remained still as the monster devoured the man piece by piece. They've merged into one, he observed quietly. You must be from Kyoto, right? The dying man smiled at Gojo Haru in recognition, sad and resigned. The villagers had locked the woman and her child in a room, starved them, and forced the daughter to eat maggots from her mother's rotting corpse. They used to have spiritual power. They could have become onmyoji, Gojo Haru added. And now they're monsters, Seer said with a sigh. The white mist now rolled down from the mountain. At the Torii Gate, pairs of bright, enormous eyes blinked behind the mist. Will more deaths make the mountain reek of blood mist? This is going to look like the devil's headquarters, Seer joked. At least the white mist is beautiful, makes it look like a sacred mountain, Gojo Haru replied, almost wistfully. Chapter 215. There were only 5 or 6 wisps of red mist, not very conspicuous within the vast expanse of white. But they were strangely beautiful, adding a splash of color to the monochrome haze. If there's no way to prevent people from entering, then anyone who crosses the Torii without permission will die. Hong Yan's tone held a sense of you humans are the most cruel. On one hand, they created a killing barrier, and on the other, they took no measures to warn outsiders. If there were protections to stop others from entering, the barrier wouldn't function, Seer said coldly. No decent person would wander up a mountain so obviously haunted by demons and spirits. Speaking of which, are you going to the completion ceremony for Sukuna's shrine? Gojo Haru suddenly remembered. It's a bit slower than yours, but the result should be decent. Fujiwara mentioned it. They're hoping you'll show up, he added casually. It depends on my mood that day. I'm fickle, Seer replied, noncommittal but not dismissive. Thanks to Ryomen and Sukuna, everyone in Kyoto's got a better opinion of you. Some even see you as a savior now, Gojo Haru said with a laugh. They want you there because they're scared Sukuna might snap and start killing, and they think you're the only one who could stop him. He sounded amused, clearly unimpressed with their reasoning. Because he's so awful, I look like the nice guy by comparison, Seer muttered, expression unreadable. He might have looked cold and unapproachable, but compared to Sukuna's monstrous grin, he seemed practically angelic. People really do judge by appearance. But I'm going to disappoint them. The white-haired boy shrugged. I won't lift a finger to help them. Even if they truly saw him as a benevolent god, it meant nothing to him. He refused to live according to other people's labels. I figured you'd say that. Gojo Haru nodded knowingly. On the day Ryomen Sukuna's shrine was completed, sorcerers and onmyoji from all over Kyoto showed up with exaggerated reverence, just like they had for Seer's shrine. The heads of the 3 great families were naturally in attendance. But the guest of honor, Sukuna, arrived late. He ignored the bowing crowd, standing alone before his statue. The likeness was uncanny. Sukuna smirked, then turned and sat down lazily, resting his chin on one hand. From his seat, he stared out over a sea of black hair. All bowed low, heads down, exposing nothing but the backs of their skulls. The scene felt disturbingly familiar. He'd spent the first 10 years of his life like this. Except back then, when people bowed to him, they said something else. Lord Fallen. Suddenly, it felt like he was back at the Fallen Heaven cult. The cult's temple had posed as a shrine by day, but at night, it was where curse users and fallen onmyoji gathered. Sukuna had been hidden away inside, worshipped. During the day, the monks chanted sutras to mask their activities. Sukuna memorized them by rote. Devotees came and went, calling him Your Highness or Lord Fallen. They were respectful, but with a patronizing arrogance beneath it. The food was bland, almost meatless. I want something better, he'd said. This is already the best, someone replied, all fake smiles and empty reassurances. Sukuna, angry, lashed out with an invisible slash. Blood sprayed. The man died instantly. Sukuna hadn't worn a shirt. Warm blood soaked his skin. The mouth on his abdomen extended its tongue and licked it clean. That night, Sukuna discovered food that satisfied him. No one in the cult bullied or hurt him, but they treated him like a weapon to be cultivated. A god they hoped to exploit. He realized the truth as he grew older. And when a woman tried to offer her body for breeding, Sukuna saw through the farce. They wanted his bloodline. Nothing more. He lost interest. Domain expansion, malevolent shrine. In an instant, the cult was wiped out. He walked out of that blood-soaked temple alone, stepping over corpses. He'd heard their whispers of Kyoto, of the mighty Gojo Haru with 6 eyes that could see all. Of Zenin Akira and his mighty Shikigami. Of Harumi the great Onmyoji, who held Kyoto together. If so many strong people were in one place, then Kyoto must be fun. But looking at the bowed heads now, Sukuna once again felt bored. "You're all so boring," he muttered, propping up his chin. The crowd stiffened. The weight of his inhuman aura made it hard to breathe. Then, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" A silver-haired boy fell from the sky, landing softly. But the monsters behind him, dog and tiger, shook the earth when they landed. Finally, Sukuna grinned, his eyes lighting up. "If you hadn't come, I was going to storm your mountain." "I came to stop that," Seer replied with a sigh. They'd worked too hard on the barrier for Sukuna to trample it. "It's strange. The moment I see you, I want to kill you," Sukuna said casually. He wasn't the type to kill indiscriminately, he liked a good fight. But this urge was different. Instinctive. "That's not something to be proud of," Seer replied flatly. If Sukuna ever found out he was using the malevolent shrine too, he'd probably try to kill him immediately. "I don't think you want to fight me," Seer said. He couldn't use the demon-suppressing shrine against Sukuna. Only infinite void. Gojo Haru had already tested that, and survived only because of his limitless technique. Sukuna had broken Haru's domain once already. "You're awfully confident." "Try me," Seer shrugged. From the crowd's perspective, this was perfect. If either of these tyrants died, they'd be better off. Both? Even better. "Here? Don't you care about your shrine?" Seer asked. "We'll move," Sukuna muttered, glancing around. This place was too small for a real battle. "As you wish." Seer nodded. He disappeared in an instant using cursed technique, blue. Sukuna, relying on raw speed and physical talent, followed close behind. Gojo Haru remained, watching their departure with a sigh. "Why are you sighing?" Hong Yan asked. "Do you think Lord Seer will lose?" Kong asked in a gruff voice. Even Mero turned to glare at him. "No. It's not that," Gojo Haru shook his head with a faint smile. He wasn't worried about Seer losing, he'd experienced that power firsthand. He just couldn't stop thinking. What exactly was the relationship between Seer and Ryomen Sukuna? Those 4 red eyes. Something wasn't adding up. He didn't have the answers, and he was too tired to keep wondering. "By the way, didn't Seer give you an errand before?" Mero suddenly remembered. "Oh, right." Gojo Haru perked up. He wasn't great with orders and usually forgot them. "Is Zenin Ryohei here?" Among the crowd, Zenin Ryohei stood dutifully behind the new clan head, Zenin Tsukasa. He had once been Zenin Akira's right-hand man, and now acted as Tsukasa's closest supporter. "Master Haru, are you looking for me?" Seer said when he returns, he wants to see you, Gojo Haru replied. "So come with us to the shrine." He said it with a smile, but had already grabbed Ryohei by the arm, leaving no room to refuse. The entity inside Ryohei's head felt a twinge of unease. Something was coming. "Ryohei. Did you offend His Highness somehow?" Tsukasa asked quietly. If so, he wouldn't protect him. But Ryohei had been the first to back him after his father's death. If he did nothing, how would that look? Probably not. If he had, he'd already be dead, Gojo Haru said with a smile behind his blindfold. Zenin Tsukasa fell silent. His only real protection was his mother, now a cursed spirit. And even she was terrified of Seer, Sukuna, and Gojo Haru. She knew she couldn't win against them. Chapter 216. Domain Expansion, Demon Subduing Shrine. Domain Expansion, Infinite Void. After the white-haired boy and the pink-haired boy chose the battlefield, they raised their hands and formed seals almost simultaneously. The result of the domain clash was a stalemate. Both were open domains, backed by immense cursed energy, and their domain levels were extremely high. For the moment, neither could gain the upper hand. Release. Blue. The two formed seals again and activated their techniques. While an invisible slash struck the white-haired boy, a surge of blue energy slammed into the pink-haired one. Seer calmly patted the dust from his clothes. The attack didn't land properly, or perhaps it did, but it was blocked by Limitless. It was like hitting a target in a game, only to find its defense impenetrable, causing 0 damage. On the other hand, Ryomen Sukuna was knocked back a few steps by the blast of blue, both left arms blown clean off, only to regenerate in the blink of an eye. "Your technique," he muttered, clenching his new fists and giving the white-haired boy an odd look. He'd seen this technique before, on someone else. Gojo Haru. That man with long white hair, who wielded 6 eyes and the limitless technique exclusive to the Gojo clan. That same unshakable defense. And from what just happened, the same blue. Those glowing blue eyes. Were they also 6 eyes? Sukuna recalled a rumor. Seer had supposedly dug out Gojo Haru's 6 eyes and transplanted them into himself. But even if 6 eyes could be transplanted, Limitless couldn't, right? Yet this kid had both. Was he also from the Gojo clan? Same white hair. Maybe not surprising. But why did this guy feel so familiar? 8. Red. While considering, Sukuna didn't stop moving. He continued forming hand signs, casting techniques. The white-haired boy mirrored him without pause. Then Sukuna noticed something peculiar. Seer's mouth hadn't moved once during spellcasting. So how was he chanting? Sukuna relied on the second mouth on his abdomen to chant, taking advantage of his unnatural body. The attacks couldn't be dodged, both domains were still active, and domains ensured that techniques would hit no matter what. Sukuna, who had just regenerated, was struck again, half his body torn apart, organs nearly spilling out, yet he stood unfazed. Within a single breath, the gruesome injuries vanished. His robes, however, were shredded, bloodied and barely hanging on. With a scowl, he tore them off. He preferred being shirtless anyway. "You can't break through my limitless," Seer said evenly. After all, Sukuna hadn't had Makura to help him develop techniques like space-severing slash. "Besides, I've got a reverse curse technique too." Seer shrugged. Sukuna's body bore black markings, curse patterns. The ones on his face were subtle, partly because of his dual faces. Had the second face grown from the back or side of his head, the marks might have been more pronounced. Seer's own curse markings were modeled after the pattern Sukuna had while possessing others. But due to the limitless defense, his clothes were pristine, and the markings remained unseen. Sukuna didn't seem to notice, or care. Strange. Did he seriously not notice? Seer used blue to instantly close the distance. Sukuna reacted fast, but not fast enough. Even when struck in the face, Sukuna didn't fall. His skull shattered, blood sprayed everywhere, but his head didn't explode like a normal human's. His body was simply too durable. "I've been meaning to say, the curse mark on your face." Sukuna licked the blood from his mouth, flashing a wicked grin. "It looks just like mine." "Really?" Seer replied, deadpan. "Of course it does. I copied it, old man." But would Seer admit that? Absolutely not. Then, do you know what the curse mark actually does? Sukuna's smile twisted further. Wait. It's not just decorative? It has a function? Seer inwardly cursed the mangaka, for probably never thinking that far ahead. He maintained a poker face. Why don't you enlighten me? So you don't know, huh? Sukuna scoffed mockingly. Must have been etched into him by someone else, then. Poor fool didn't even realize what he had. Even Sukuna's own markings were acquired, not innate. But at least he knew what they meant. Seer stared at him. Damn. Bet you never even figured out what the curse pattern was for. Does Sukuna need another trump card that never gets used? Why do all these characters die before using their full strength? I'm done. This is boring. Seer turned away without warning. Sukuna's absurd regeneration meant this was going to devolve into a slugfest. Whoever exhausted their cursed energy first would lose. Seer wasn't scared of a prolonged battle. He could just draw cards if needed. But this? Pointless. He preferred quick, clean fights. If you fight me seriously, I'll tell you what the curse mark does, Sukuna offered, annoyed that the other had already started walking away. He'd only just gotten warmed up. He hadn't even gotten serious yet. Surely the guy wanted to know, right? Nope. Not interested. Seer vanished before Sukuna could react. The slashes from Sukuna's domain never even landed. The fight was over. Neither had gone all out. It had just been a test. Strange kid. Sukuna muttered, standing beneath the torii gate of his domain, his grin fading. That guy. There's no way. How could someone else have the exact same technique? Too bad he killed everyone in the fallen cult. No one left to ask. And that guy didn't seem to know the curse mark's meaning either. So what the hell? Sukuna fell into deep thought, but no answer came. Even he couldn't imagine that Seer was just some reincarnated cosplayer who copied his whole aesthetic. His shrine is almost identical to mine. And this is the first time I've been hit by cleave and dismantle. Can't see it, but I can feel it. Slashes. Precision cuts. If I could merge those traits into infinite void. Slashes, burning, shredding, all fused into infinite void. But that would require activating both domains simultaneously. Overlapping two domains. That's impossible. Having two is already unheard of. Using both together is beyond broken. If only I had two bodies. Seer returned to his shrine, still mulling over possible domain fusions like an academic researcher. He hadn't even considered going back to Sukuna's shrine. Why would he? Then, as he was about to land at the mountaintop shrine, his senses picked up movement halfway up the mountain. Oh right. He forgot something. Didn't matter though, it probably wasn't important. He adjusted his descent and landed in front of the torii at the halfway point. My lord. You're back. Tsukiyomi Dono, was there something you needed me for? Mero, Gojo Haru, and the familiar suture-headed man all spoke up at once. Seer's eyes locked on the stitch-faced figure. Oh, right. He told Gojo Haru to bring Geto's body, more specifically, Kenjaku, aka Brain. But before he got to that, may I open your skull? Seer asked politely. Always good manners to ask first. The answer didn't matter, but it was the thought that counted. Not many people were as considerate as him. WH. Brain blinked in confusion. The next second, he was already trapped inside infinite void. Unable to move. The 0.2 seconds didn't affect the others much, maybe a brief daze, but it was enough time for Seer to open up Brain's skull along the suture line. Inside, a pale, grinning Brain with teeth. Honestly? It looked kind of cyberpunk. Like Brain was the pilot of a mecha, sitting in the cockpit. No blood or gore like a hot pot pig brain, but still, those teeth. Gross. Seer reached in and casually plucked brain out. Limitless ensured his hands stayed clean. Then the domain vanished. Everyone else blinked and came to, only to see a corpse on the ground with its head open. And Seer holding a grinning brain like a stress ball. "Tell me where Tengen is," Seer asked, mildly. He'd always thought Tengen might be tied to the world's will itself. Brain, still stunned, stayed silent. "What just happened? When did I get caught? My technique doesn't even have offensive power. Now, without a body, I'm fragile as hell. If he squeezes too hard, I'm toast." Wait. How did he know about me? Is it the 6 eyes? Gojo Haru never noticed. Could it be the 6 eyes evolved after the transplant? These cursed eyes. What a pain. Kenjaku cursed internally, but his expression was a calm, sycophantic smile. "What is Tengen?" he said innocently. "You don't know." Seer squinted. Wait. Did the original manga ever confirm Kenjaku's connection to Tengen? He couldn't remember. Probably yes. These two were ancient schemers. He was sure they were friends. But if Kenjaku was playing dumb. "Alright, I'll pretend you don't know." Seer squeezed the brain gently. Almost popped it. Thankfully, Kenjaku had reinforced himself with cursed energy, otherwise he'd have exploded. Kenjaku stayed silent, calculating. He knew exactly who Tengen was. They'd worked together before, especially when Tengen gave up on maintaining the barrier. But no one else should know that. Right now, survival was all that mattered. "I can let you go," the white-haired boy said suddenly. "But you'll have to form a contract and do something for me." Seer smiled brightly, but his face was totally unsuited for such a cheerful expression. It made him look psychotic. "What do you want me to do?" Kenjaku asked cautiously. He was genuinely curious now. What exactly was this insane, overpowered boy planning? "It's simple," Seer said. And then he whispered it. Kenjaku's face froze. The mouth on the brain opened in shock, revealing 2 perfect rows of teeth. Chapter 217. After restraining Nozomi, Seer stuffed him back into the corpse and closed up his skull. "Come play sometime," he smiled, waving casually. Surprisingly, Nozomi didn't flee immediately after regaining freedom. Instead, he cautiously edged out of Seer's line of sight. "Let's go." Seer formed a seal and stepped through the torii gate. After all, the barrier was in place. Without the proper technique, it was easy to get lost inside. While people at their level wouldn't die, if they did get lost, their likely solution would be brute force, which would destroy the barrier they worked so hard to establish. That was why Gojo Haru and the others hadn't entered directly and instead waited halfway up the mountain. They simply didn't know how to enter. "You and Sukuna. You won, right?" Gojo Haru lifted his blindfold, examining the boy. There were no visible injuries, no disrupted flow of cursed energy, not even dust on his robes. If it looked this easy, he must have won. Right? "No, we didn't really fight at all," Seer said, sounding irritated. "As for the flashy displays and techniques, that wasn't a fight. That was just warming up. Can you see what the curse marks on my body actually do?" He turned and pointed to his own face, letting Gojo Haru examine him. "If I could, you'd be able to see it too," Gojo Haru sighed and shook his head. "We both have 6 eyes. If you can't see it, I can't either." Seer clicked his tongue, even more annoyed. Could it be that Sukuna's eyes had some special function he didn't have access to? That didn't seem right. His eyes were red only when activated, but they were still 6 eyes. Sukuna had never even used his own eyes in that way. "This is so boring," Seer muttered as he returned to the shrine and locked himself in his room. The Heian era was boring. The people were boring. His phone and computer didn't work here. No electricity. No internet. No air conditioning. Even Meteor City had better amenities. He had to get back to the future, back to anime, manga, and working outlets. System, do you plan to help me at all? Seer grumbled. The system had been silent for years. Finally, after nearly 3 years in Heian-kyo, the long-dormant system spoke. Energy preparation complete. Timeline jump initiating, landing point, 1,000 years later. Host, prepare for transit. Prepare? He was always ready. Without hesitation, Seer stuffed Curse into his mouth, or rather, into the system space. Curse had been system purchased, so it could be stored. Everything else would have been wasted. Mero, Sora, pack up. We're leaving. He emerged cheerfully from the room. His movement stirred the hanging scrolls on the wall. Where are we going? Hanyan and Gojo Haru asked. What do you think? Seer teased them. Your Highness, are you returning to Takamagahara? The two girls asked nervously. In their minds, after nearly 3 years, they had fully convinced themselves Seer was truly a deity. That's right, Seer answered, too lazy to make up a better story. Jump initiated. Don't forget to guard the shrine, he said over his shoulder. In a blink, he, along with Mero and Sora, vanished from the shrine. He's gone, Gojo Haru murmured, staring at the now empty clearing. Probably back to his own timeline, 1,000 years ahead. And humans, they don't live that long. You might see him again, he said to Hanyan. After all, high-ranking demons had long lifespans. Hanyan was already over 500 years old. 1,000 wasn't impossible. Fated people always meet again. Why grieve a temporary goodbye? The man with long white hair removed his silk blindfold. Your eyes? Hanyan and the girls were shocked. Weren't Gojo Haru's 6 eyes removed and transplanted? So what were they seeing now? The 6 eyes can't be taken away, Haru said. Without my body, they're just normal eyes. Maybe even transparent. Seer had gouged them out before, for experimentation, of course. But cursed techniques like this. They were born with you. I probably won't come to the shrine anymore. I'll leave it to you. Gojo Haru always lingered because Seer was there. Now that he was gone, there was no reason to stay. And the people of Kyoto must never learn that Seer had left. 1,000 years later. June 1, 2005. There's a confirmed first-grade cursed spirit near Red Mist Mountain, just outside Kyoto, said the suited man with polished glasses. He bowed respectfully to the 3 students seated in front of him, each a teenager, yet treated like superior officers. Yeah. Got it. We'll head out soon, said the white-haired boy with sunglasses, legs on the table, chewing a lollipop and holding a Paradise game console. The assistant supervisor turned to the short-haired girl next to him, eyes pleading. She stared for a second, then looked away coldly. Request denied. Only one hope left. Mi-san, he said, turning to the gentle-looking black-haired boy. Don't worry. We'll handle it quickly, Mi said with a warm smile. The assistant supervisor nearly cried. Finally, a decent person among these monsters. Red Mist Mountain. That name sounds familiar. The boy in sunglasses muttered. Oh yeah. That's the Forbidden Mountain, right? The one we're not supposed to go near. Forbidden? Mi and Ieri Shoko looked at Gojo Satoru curiously. Well, the Gojo family has a rule against approaching it. No reason listed. Gojo Satoru shrugged. I actually forgot all about it. Sounds fun. The higher-ups say to eliminate any cursed spirits outside the mountain, but under no circumstances enter it, the assistant supervisor stressed. La, can't hear you. Satoru picked his ear, ignoring him. We'll keep an eye on Satoru, Mi sighed, comforting the flustered man. Meanwhile, in an alley behind a bar, a new figure appeared. A man with lipstick on his chest, cash in hand, had just stepped outside, and instantly noticed the body of a pale, white-haired child lying on the ground. Clothes glimmering even in the dark alley. A belt inlaid with 24 jade pieces. Pure gem earrings. Jackpot. This kid's whole outfit is worth millions. US dollars. He knelt, already imagining the payout. But when his hand touched the belt, a bloody hand grabbed his wrist. Who are you? The boy asked, opening 4 red eyes in the dark. Oh, no. Big trouble. The man stepped back, but the boy rose unsteadily, dagger still lodged in his chest. Where is this? He muttered. Suwu blinked. Right. I was cosplaying Sukuna at the convention. Got stabbed. Died. Then bound to a system. The task, convince the cursed world he was Sukuna's vessel. He looked the part, curse marks, 4 eyes, red contacts. The clothes were overkill, but they were his style. Ow, he grunted, pulling out the dagger. Blood spurted. The wound healed quickly thanks to his reversal technique. You. The man hesitated. Cursed spirit? Or sorcerer? Wait. Isn't that Fushiguro Toji? Seer looked closer, recognizing the figure by the scar and aura. Wasn't this guy supposed to be dead? Did he jump back to before the events of the main series? Itadori Yuji must still be a toddler. And Gojo was probably still in school. If I show up as Sukuna's vessel now, I'll get a death sentence for sure. Still. Wait. He glanced back. Fushiguro Toji would do anything for money, right? I need a place to stay, Seer said. And help me sell these. He pulled off his earrings and rings. Why the hell did I dress so flashy for cosplay again? Toji looked at him like he was insane. But when he heard, I saw the cursed spirit on you, his interest peaked. Find me a place. The rest of the money's yours, Seer said. Toji didn't hesitate anymore. Just a place to stay? Easy money. You don't have any enemies, right? Or need someone killed? Toji asked, trying to upsell his services. Not yet, Seer replied. No one knew him here. Yet. Chapter 218. I'll say it again, Fushiguro Toji is a bad guy. How bad is he? He asked, what's your name? Seer answered with a blank face, I forgot. Then how will anyone know who hurt you? Toji's eyes landed on Seer's white hair, a hint of suspicion flickering in his gaze. Why? Because something about the kid looked annoyingly familiar. A few years ago, he'd seen another white-haired kid, the Six Eyes wielder from the Gojo clan. Fortunately, this one had red eyes, not blue. Still, it made Toji uneasy. But since the kid was loaded, that alone made him likable enough. Seer remained silent. He obviously couldn't just blurt out that he was a time traveler, nor could he fabricate an identity on the spot. So he simply said, I forgot everything that happened before. His tone was calm, even numb. The perfect way to dodge questions about his identity. Toji didn't say he believed it, but he didn't say he didn't, either. His attitude screamed, I don't care who you are, I'll take your money either way. The guy radiated decay, both morally and spiritually. Is this how he was in the original canon? Seer tried to recall, but found a mental fog obstructing everything. Maybe it was a side effect of time travel. Toji brought him to an apartment in a rich district. Seer stepped in, half expecting to meet a young Megumi, one of the childhood trio. But the apartment was empty. Clothes were strewn everywhere. That was it. Do you live alone? Seer asked suspiciously. What, Expecting a woman? Toji smirked. Wasn't gonna ask that directly, Seer muttered. I don't bring women back. I usually go to their places, Toji said shamelessly. You're a lot more generous than my usual clients, Toji added meaningfully. My instincts are telling me I should call the cops, Seer said flatly, lifting a hand as if holding a phone. Toji just laughed. Kidding. I don't know whose rich kid you are, but you're probably worth a fortune. Seer eyed him warily. He could tell Toji was up to something. But strangely, he didn't feel threatened. Despite knowing Toji's reputation, someone who could beat special grades barehanded, Seer just couldn't feel afraid. Maybe his danger sense was broken? He removed his ornate belt and handed it over. Exchange this for cash. Toji raised an eyebrow. The belt was encrusted with jade, probably worth millions. Looks like you planned your runaway in advance. Wearing your most expensive gear and everything, Toji joked. I'm starting to think the same, Seer said blandly. Got a room I can stay in? Toji casually opened the door. The room was filled with junk and had no bed. Your room now, he said, brushing some stuff aside and lazily laying out a futon. Seer's expression said, really? But in the end, he endured. At least it was better than sleeping next to a dumpster. As soon as Toji left the apartment, he called someone. Hey. Can you check if there's an 11 or 12-year-old kid in the big 3 clans? White hair, red eyes, curse markings. And most importantly, 4 eyes. 4 eyes? What, like Sukuna? The man on the other end laughed. No joke. I saw it. Kid got stabbed through the heart and just healed himself with reverse curse technique. Toji smirked, twirling the jewelry in his fingers. Even if the kid didn't have a formal identity, he was valuable enough just for his technique. Back in the apartment, Seer was in front of the bathroom mirror. White hair, red eyes, curse marks all over. His cosplay had been too committed, he even painted curse markings down his chest and arms. What do I do next? He muttered. Maybe I should show up somewhere and make them think I'm Sukuna's new vessel? Wait. I should be able to use Sukuna's skills now. But how many fingers worth of power do I have? He paused. Looking up again, his red eyes had turned pale blue. Wrong timeline again? Wasn't I supposed to show up in 2018, when Yuji enters Jujutsu High? He frowned. The system remained silent, as always. And the first person I met was Fushiguro Toji. He sighed. This throws off everything. He casually summoned Mero and Sora. Mero knelt immediately. My lord. The white-haired boy had reverted back to his childlike form, shorter, rounder-faced, softer features. From now on, if you see me with red eyes, pretend you don't know me, Seer ordered. Mero looked confused. Sometimes the lord's eyes turned red, it wasn't unusual. Still, he accepted the command without protest. Can Sora and I stay by your side? He asked. No. You'd give me away. Seer shook his head. Even without his memories, he was still himself. With enough clues, he'd figure it all out, and that was dangerous. I'm sending you to Red Mist Mountain. You'll know what to do when you get there. He opened a barrier to cloak Sora. A 6-meter-long flying white tiger was a bit conspicuous in modern Japan, especially with surveillance cameras everywhere. Let's not end up on the evening news. When they were gone, Seer looked at his reflection again. His missing earrings. His missing belt. Of course he'd pawned it all immediately after arriving. He knew himself too well. But why give it all to Toji? That guy's a gambling addict. Giving valuables to him was like feeding meat to a stray dog. Ugh. First time erasing my own memories. I overdid it. He sighed. Well, I should be able to make money easily enough. I did take a few economics courses. 2005. There should still be tons of opportunities. He was feeling optimistic, until he suddenly collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, they were red once more. Did I just faint? He wiped a sudden nosebleed and stared at the mirror. Am I terminally ill or something? What kind of time traveler gets nosebleeds and drops unconscious? Meanwhile, Red Mist Mountain. See anything? Me asked, eyes scanning the landscape. Nope. Not even the tiniest cursed spirit, Gojo Satoru replied, pulling down his sunglasses. His 6 eyes couldn't detect anything either. Red Mist Mountain lived up to its name, blood-red foliage, red sap, and a perpetual fog halfway up the slope. Even aerial photography couldn't penetrate the mist. Every generation of Jujutsu higher-ups had warned their successors, never go near that mountain. Which only made it more mysterious. And now, not even Satoru's 6 eyes could see what lay beyond it. Which made it even worse. Chapter 219. I'll say it again, Fushiguro Toji is a bad guy. How bad is he? He asked. What's your name? Seer answered blankly, I forgot. Then wouldn't it be impossible to know who hurt you? Toji's gaze landed on Seer's white hair, his eyes flashing with subtle recognition. Why? Because this kid looked oddly familiar. A few years ago, he'd seen another white-haired brat, the one from the Gojo clan with the 6 eyes. Thankfully, this one had red eyes instead of blue. But even so, Toji couldn't shake the weird feeling he got from him. Still, seeing how generous the boy was, Toji found himself rather liking him. Seer stayed quiet for a moment. He couldn't just blurt out that he was a time traveler, and making up a background on the spot wasn't safe either. So he went with, I've forgotten everything that happened before. His tone was calm, flat, even a bit hollow. Perfect, this would let him sidestep any questions about identity or origin. Toji didn't say he believed him, nor that he didn't. His whole vibe screamed, I don't care who you are. Be whoever you want, I'm just a rotten guy trying to get by. The man practically radiated decay and disinterest. Is he always like this? Seer tried to remember what Toji was like in the original timeline but found he couldn't. His head felt cloudy, like everything before was wrapped in fog. Nobody said time travel would come with brain fog. Seer shook his head and followed Toji. The man took him to an apartment located in a luxury district. This guy's richer than I thought. Fushiguro Megumi should be here, right? Seer stepped inside, half expecting to see a member of the future protagonist trio and mentally preparing to check him off the met them all list. But the apartment was empty. All he saw was Toji's clothes strewn across the floor, and nothing else. Huh? Where's little Megumi? You said you just needed a place to stay. Don't mind sharing with me, I don't come back much, Toji said casually. Most of his time was spent either working gigs to make money, gambling, drinking, or crashing at someone else's place. Usually a woman's. He called them guests. Seer only asked for a place to stay, and Toji had that. Which meant the money from selling Seer's jewelry was his to keep. You live alone? Seer asked suspiciously. What are you trying to ask? Toji replied flatly. I thought there'd be a woman, Seer said dryly. He wasn't about to ask where Toji's son was outright. How would he explain knowing that? I don't bring women back here. Usually, I go to their place, Toji said, shameless as ever. This guy really is a scumbag. Honestly, you're more generous than my regular customers. Toji muttered with a half-smile. My instincts say I should call the cops right now. Seer reached toward his pocket, miming pulling out a phone. Relax, I don't even know whose rich kid you are, Toji replied sarcastically. He didn't believe for a second this kid wasn't some clan's young master. With that look and gear. Please. The white hair. Could he be from the Gojo clan? Might be worth finding out. Maybe he could even sell the kid back and make a profit. Seer looked at Toji suspiciously. The man was definitely scheming something shady. But weirdly, Seer didn't feel threatened. Even knowing Toji could physically solo a special grade, he felt completely at ease. Was his sense of danger that dulled? Seer made a mental note to reflect on that later. You can help me sell this belt. He took off the ornate jade inlaid accessory. Why did he cosplay with such expensive stuff again? Was he planning to run away from home or something? Looks like you were planning this, Toji joked. I'm starting to suspect that too, Seer muttered. You got a room I can use? Sure, if I move some stuff around, Toji said with zero shame. He opened a door revealing a junk-filled storage space with no bed. Is this how you treat the guy who just gave you a pile of cash? Seer tried giving him a glare, but Toji casually moved the junk aside and even laid out a floor futon. Your room, he announced proudly. Even the futon was half-assed. Seer opened his mouth, hesitated, and decided, fine. It's only temporary. At least I'm not sleeping by a dumpster. Weird. Why'd that sound like he'd actually done it before? Alright, I'm off. Toji grabbed the belt and jewelry and left with a confident swagger. Once he was gone, he called a contact. Checked for any white-haired kid, around 11 or 12, red eyes, facial markings. Important, 4 eyes. 4 eyes? What is this, Sukuna's reincarnation? The guy on the other end laughed. I'm serious. The brat healed from a chest stab like it was nothing. Reversed the damage. Toji tossed a gem into the air and caught it, his scarred mouth curling into a smirk. That kind of ability would fetch a hell of a price. But those 4 eyes. That was still bugging him. No normal person has 4 eyes. Even if 2 of them closed later, Toji had already seen them open. Well, whatever that kid is planning, it has nothing to do with him. He barely stayed in that apartment anyway. Rent was due soon, might as well let the brat squat there. Elsewhere in the apartment. 3 days passed. And Seer had to accept the bitter truth, Fushiguro Toji had bailed with the money. He hadn't come back once. Not even to check in. That bastard. He's even worse than I expected. Even stole from a kid? No one gets to take my things for free. Seer sat on the couch, snapped a pair of chopsticks in half, and smiled with a hint of menace. No one makes me take a loss. He tossed the chopsticks aside and walked out. He hadn't fainted again in 3 days. So it wasn't some fatal illness, probably just side effects from the time jump. Which meant it was time to test his strength. Under the hanfu, he'd thankfully worn an old man-style shirt and shorts. A little lame, but better than running around in full cosplay. The curse markings might attract some stares, but in this city, he wasn't even the weirdest-looking person. Colorful wigs, face paint, spikes, fishnets, bloody makeup. Seer fit right in. And a surprising number of these people had curses trailing them, weak ones, like flies. He could kill them all with a thought. Which was the problem, nothing was strong enough to test himself against. How to find Toji? Wait, I've got it. Seer returned to the bar alley where he first woke up. He loitered there for days, swatting low-level curses and trying to spot Toji. He didn't even have to open a domain. These spirits weren't worth it. Until finally, one evening, a luxury car pulled up. Out stepped Toji, arm around a rich, beautiful woman. The woman groped his abs as they flirted, her hand drifting lower. He pulled her hand back. That costs extra. I understand, she said, smiling knowingly. Toji, the infamous pretty boy for hire. Known for his devastating physique, brooding aura, and dark charisma, he'd become the hottest gigolo in town. Seer looked away, then paused, turned back, and narrowed his eyes. He wiped some dust on his face, adjusted his expression, and charged across the street. "Dad." The woman froze mid-step. Toji's smile cracked. This one word might cost him a fortune. "Mom's dying in the hospital. The doctor says you won't pick up the phone. My sister and I haven't eaten in half a month. We've been digging through trash." Seer hugged Toji's waist, sobbing as he smeared dirt all over his expensive clothes. "You've been with this aunt all this time? What about Mom? Don't you want us anymore?" Toji's eye twitched. He couldn't pry the kid off. "Hasn't anyone taught you not to call strangers Dad?" he muttered. Yes, he'd taken Seer's stuff. So what? Free rent, wasn't it? June Shire. "Is this your son?" The rich woman's tone turned cold. "Your wife's. In the hospital?" Her face twisted into pure disdain. "What a scumbag. Get out." She dumped her wallet's contents on Seer and drove off in her luxury car. Seer blinked at the wad of bills in his hand, breaking character. This felt suspiciously like street theater with tip money. Toji, no longer graceful, snatched the cash. "That was for my son. Are you? Like you'd actually give it to your son," Seer sneered. "You think your stuff's that easy to sell? That crap only goes at auction," Toji lied smoothly. He'd already sold the earrings to a rich woman and gotten paid. But hey, details didn't matter now, right? Chapter 220. "You really are a rotten person," Seer said expressionlessly. "Yep. That's me. Do you regret it now?" "Too late for that," Fushiguro Shire replied, wearing the smug apathy of someone who no longer cared about dignity or consequence. Seer sighed and held his forehead. There was no point trying to reason with a guy like this, someone who had given up, who wore his numbness like a badge of honor. All tactics were useless here. If Shire had any concern for pride, he wouldn't be sleeping with rich women for a living. If he had any will to live, his eyes wouldn't look so dead. Seer had seen that look plenty of times, he just couldn't clearly remember where. The memories were hazy now. "What's your identity?" Fushiguro Shire finally asked, eyes narrowing suspiciously. There was no record of anyone like Seer in the three great families. White hair, red eyes, and facial markings were all distinctive features, yet nothing came up in any records, not even among illegitimate children. "Do you really want to know?" Seer asked calmly. "I'm not that curious," Shire replied, taking 2 steps back. "As long as the money gets in, buy me a phone and a SIM card. Transfer the balance to it and hand it over," Seer said flatly, his tone eerily mature for a child. Shire said nothing, and within moments, he was gone. Seer stood there thinking aloud. If I want people to believe I'm Sukuna's vessel, then I need a real Sukuna. And I'll probably need to act more unhinged. His behavior had been too restrained lately, mostly because of the uncertainty after the timeline shift. But after testing his limits these past few days, he had a grasp on his power. He was absurdly strong now. No need for hesitation anymore. When he returned to Shire's apartment and reached for the door, something felt off. He paused. The moment he opened it, a sharp-edged staff shot toward his face, but an invisible slash severed it midair. All 4 of Seer's eyes snapped open. Inside stood a young man in a dark uniform, clearly a student, black-haired and green-eyed. He wasn't expecting a child, let alone one with 4 eyes. 4 eyes. "It's real," he muttered, stepping back in fear. The intel from Chuang was right. There is an unregistered sorcerer. But it's Sukuna's vessel? The boy was both disgusted and terrified. Seer blinked slowly. Chuang must have noticed the recent curse killings and sent someone to recruit him, until they saw what he looked like. If this guy survived, the entire Jujutsu world would soon know Sukuna had returned. That wasn't supposed to happen for more than a decade. Seer watched as the sorcerer bolted for the window. If I kill him here, cleaning up the mess will be annoying, he muttered. The guy leapt out, but didn't make it far. Seer raised his hand and traced a finger through the air. The figure was sliced into clean pieces midair. At least the blood hadn't touched the apartment. Not exactly a plausible accident, Seer murmured, frowning at the scene below. Guess this place is compromised now. He packed his few belongings and left. Glancing at his reflection in a glass door, he sighed, close. He shut his 2 extra eyes with a bit of concentration. Having 4 open was far too recognizable. He carried his bag and walked into the night. I have a bad feeling about all this. The assistant supervisor had sent in the mission report. The student who had been killed belonged to the Zenin clan. He was only sent to scout and possibly recruit the unknown sorcerer. The intel suggested a cooperative wild caster who killed curses without reward. No one expected a massacre. Now Seer was no longer just a mystery, he was a wanted criminal. A bounty was issued for his capture or death. Fushiguro Shire, while placing bets at a racetrack, spotted the bounty announcement. He spat out his drink. 100 million yen. Not bad. But not worth the risk, he muttered. The kid had reverse cursed technique. That made him dangerous. Maybe the reward would increase later. High-level missions in the Jujutsu world usually fell to the strongest, retired elders were hands-off, and current leaders delegated most problems to the younger generation. Especially to the top students, Gojo Satoru and me. If Gojo wasn't in school, no one could make him work. But as a student? Every difficult job landed in his lap. So this kid killed a Kyoto student? And he looks like a total brat. Gojo Satoru drawled. Seems to be highly talented, me observed. I can't wait to meet him. Let's go. Gojo shot up like an excited child. They dispatched several scout curses. Mi's Shikigami would trace any spiritual fluctuation. Meanwhile, Seer noticed an uptick in curse activity. Stronger now, grade 1s and 2s instead of bottom feeders. Still no challenge. Instead of finding a place to live, Seer slept on a lounge chair in a park. The open space meant fewer restrictions and less cleanup after killing. As he cleaved through another snake-type curse, he saw them. 2 figures descending from the sky. Hey, found ya, Gojo Satoru said, landing in front of him and bending down. His glasses reflected the streetlight as their eyes locked, blue versus red. Seer instinctively leaned back. Mi landed quietly behind him. These 2. The strongest students. Model workers of the Jujutsu world, then and now. You. Gojo stared at him, scanning the flow of cursed energy. That aura. He paused, then snapped his fingers. Wait, this cursed energy. It's the same as Sukuna's. What? Mi blinked. You sure? I've seen Sukuna's fingers. It's exactly the same. Excited, Gojo poked Seer's cheek like a toy. You're too arrogant, Seer muttered, and slashed. Invisible cuts appeared instantly on both Gojo and Mi's bodies, deep and bone-revealing. Seer blinked. Gojo too? Wait. He doesn't keep Limitless active all the time as a student? You should really keep your shield up 24/7, Seer said, smirking. Gojo looked at the blood on his skin, stunned. This was the first time he'd ever been injured. Seer's words were sharp, this generation of 6 eyes is kind of weak. And the kid controlling cursed spirits. He waved and casually killed all of Mi's Shikigami. Insult both. Equal opportunity trash talk. I can't take this, Jia. I'm killing this guy, Gojo growled and activated cursed technique, Lapse Blue. After that, Seer's attacks stopped landing. Gojo had learned his lesson and activated Limitless. But me, already slashed multiple times, was on the verge of being removed from the fight. Until now, he believed he was just as strong as Gojo. Now, he wasn't so sure anymore. Chapter 221. No limit. What a broken ability, Seer muttered, expressionless, as he looked at Gojo Satoru, who, aside from the opening exchange, hadn't taken any further damage. Especially with that speed. He could teleport behind you and smack the back of your head without warning. Luckily, Seer's reaction time had improved immensely. He barely dodged a fatal strike. He had no desire to find out if the reverse cursed technique could heal his brain after it got blown to bits. Even so, he'd taken 3 hits from Gojo's reversal, red head on. Even with his current endurance, Seer was seriously wounded. Sure, the reverse technique closed the wound quickly, but it didn't numb the pain. And Seer, who had never suffered serious injury before, looked even more grim. It hurt. A lot more than getting stabbed in the heart. His strongest emotion now wasn't regret. It wasn't fear. It was anger. He had been stabbed by a lunatic for attending a convention, then got isekai'd, and was still being hunted. Even if the guy in front of him was Gojo Satoru, a favorite character, this was unforgivable. Liking someone didn't mean you had to let them beat the hell out of you. Sure, Seer had struck first, but would he have if Gojo hadn't shown up spoiling for a fight? No way. This was Gojo's fault. I've had enough, Seer muttered, eyes blazing crimson. Domain expansion, demon subduing shrine. His hands wove signs with practiced ease. The blue moon vanished. A blood-red moon rose. The Torii Gate shimmered into existence beside him. Crap. Gojo's 6 eyes immediately sensed danger. He grabbed Mi's collar and yanked them both out of the domain's radius. A domain? Mi stared down at the white-haired boy standing calmly at its center. No way. How old is this kid? Gojo hovered in the air, stunned. That's not a kid. That has to be Ryomen Sukuna himself, he declared, eyes wide. He and Mi hadn't even learned domain expansion yet. This guy, looking younger than either of them, was pulling off a flawless one? Yeah, no doubt about it. That was Sukuna. A cunning old demon who'd found a new young body to pretend he was a prodigy. This is bad, Mi said, unusually quiet. Bad indeed. There were barely a handful of domain users in the entire Jujutsu world, and most of those were long dead. Don't tell me you two still haven't learned domain expansion? Seer sneered from below. He remembered from the source, Mi never used a domain, and Gojo only developed his during the fight with Toji Fushiguro. Logically, it should have been easy to win against a young Gojo with no reversed cursed technique and no domain. But no limit cursed energy was too much of a cheat. If only he had the Heavenly Doom Lance. Even in a video game, an ability like Infinity would have been banned. Total fun killer. Unless he was the one who had it. I overestimated you. Weak. Just weak, Seer said, waving his hand dismissively. That tone's pissing me off, Gojo growled. Fighting someone who can't use a domain is like playing pretend. Seer yawned. Go learn it, then come back. Honestly, he didn't want to keep fighting Gojo anymore. That impenetrable barrier was just annoying now. Gojo hovered silently, 6 eyes scanning Seer. But even with them, he couldn't sense Seer's full strength. That alone said a lot. Still, it was obvious the guy didn't want to keep fighting. Why? Domain expansion, infinite void. Seer blinked. The second domain overlapped his first. He watched the fusion process begin, collide, and dissolve into nothing. Failed. He let out a sigh, not really surprised. It was his first attempt. You're still here? He looked up at the pair in the sky. Maybe he should give Gojo the heavenly Doom Lance right now. That might kickstart his understanding of reversal and domain. Yeah, why not? Before either of them could react, Seer teleported, and walked through the air, Tian Nemo in hand. The lance pierced Gojo's chest before he could dodge. Seer had aimed carefully. Avoided the heart. Still serious, but not fatal. To be fair, he gave me a slap across the chest, too. The quality? Don't underestimate anyone, you brats. He yanked the lance back and watched both teens fall. Gojo had been using cursed technique laps, blue to fly, and now that he was unconscious, down they went. Let's see now. Seer crouched beside Gojo and searched his pockets. Found his phone, opened the contacts, and selected Ieri Shoko. He sent her a photo of the unconscious duo, along with a location pin. Gojo should awaken reversal on his own. But just in case, best to call in the healer. Wouldn't want to accidentally kill a character he liked. I stabbed you less than Gojo, you'll be fine, Seer murmured as he turned to me. He set up a curtain barrier so no civilians would stumble on the bloody scene. Perfect. Crisis handled. Good luck, both of you. He gave a mock prayer. Then he looked at his reflection again. Red eyes. Blue eyes. 4 eyes. Switchable at will. When he'd told Mero to treat him like a stranger while his eyes were red, it was just insurance. Because honestly, Mero would probably still worship him regardless. But the time drop had ruined his plans. The only thing he could do now was survive. And figure out how to merge his two domains. He left the park and found a new reclining chair in a different neighborhood. Neon City had no shortage of parks. He cloaked himself in a curtain again and laid down. Didn't want to wake up in an orphanage. Round 2, he mumbled, closing his eyes. When he woke with a start, heart pounding, it was déjà vu. Blacked out again? He rubbed his eyes and muttered, at least it wasn't during the fight. Yeah. Fainting mid-battle? That'd be a death sentence. Now that Gojo and me got wrecked, maybe the Jujutsu higher-ups will finally back off. He yawned and rolled over. Hopefully. Scene transition, Kyoto Technical School. What did that moron send this time? Ieri Shoko rubbed her temples as she opened the latest message from Gojo Satoru. She expected another narcissistic selfie. He loved spamming dumb pictures and updates no one asked for. But as soon as she clicked the message, her expression froze. 2 bodies. Blood. The caption just gave an address. The sunglasses had fallen off. Gojo's white hair was matted with red. Me lay sprawled nearby. The photo wasn't taken by either of them. That meant there was a third party. And that third party had beaten them. Those two weren't just special grade, they were monsters. Who could possibly do this? And what the hell did they want? Ieri immediately went to the principal. And the principal, without hesitation, called the Gojo clan directly. There was no time to waste. Letting the higher-ups know wouldn't help, half of them wanted Satoru and me dead. But the Gojo family? They'd act. They had to. Chapter 222. The Gojo family blocked the news overnight and rushed to the park with their family member, Ieri Shoko. They moved as quickly as possible, terrified that their beloved Six-Eyes successor had met with misfortune. Who knows how long their hearts stopped when they saw their clan head lying in a pool of blood. But when they arrived, what they saw was their clan head already healed. His shirt was torn at the chest, blood matted his hair, but there wasn't a single visible wound. His pale blue eyes still glowed under the night sky, like starlight swirling in their depths. There was even a crazed grin on his face. "Ah, perfect timing, Shoko, you're here." When he saw his classmate and the other family members, he only greeted her casually. As always, he ignored the rest of the Gojo clan. After all, if he greeted them first, they'd start lecturing him. "Check on Suguru. I'm going after that guy." With that, his figure disappeared in a flash. Everyone could sense that his aura was now stronger than before. Lord Satoru. Could he have awakened the reverse cursed technique? One Gojo member asked, overwhelmed with joy. It must be. Before we got here, Lord Satoru had already healed, he must have figured it out, another shouted excitedly. 6 eyes, limitless, and now reverse curse technique, their clan head was without a doubt the strongest in the Jujutsu world. The head of the clan is truly blessed. They were so thrilled, they looked ready to set off fireworks. They didn't even glance at Geto Suguru, still lying unconscious nearby. Only Airi Shoko stepped forward and healed him. The wound looked like a lethal chest injury, but as soon as she used her cursed energy to treat him, she realized, it was just an illusion. The strike had avoided the heart by exactly 0.1 millimeters, and someone had even done first aid afterward. Whoever attacked Geto Suguru clearly didn't want him to die. But why? And to take on both Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru at once, and win. That kind of power. Ugh, I'm too tired to figure this out, Shoko sighed, her eyes shadowed with fatigue. Let someone else deal with this mess. Gojo Satoru tried tracing Seer's cursed energy with 6 eyes, scouring all of Tokyo from above. But cursed energy, unlike the taint left by cursed spirits, was far harder to detect. Even with 6 eyes, he couldn't pinpoint Seer's location. Still, he wasn't panicking. He returned to playing his role as the Gojo clan's head and quickly took action. He ordered his clan and several agents to track the boy down. He even increased the black market bounty on Seer tenfold, specifically asking for him to be captured alive. Anyone with useful intel could cash in too. The Gojo family did their best to keep his and Suguru's defeat secret, but they couldn't hide it from the other 2 great clans. At the next Jujutsu High leadership meeting, the brash, young Gojo Satoru looked hilariously out of place surrounded by conservative elders. "I heard you were injured 2 days ago." One of them asked directly. Gojo Satoru threw his long legs up on the table, making the surrounding elders scowl. "Who told you that?" he replied lazily. "Chojo did," the man said quickly, passing the blame. Gojo rolled his eyes. "Figures. Well, if you must know. Ryomen Sukuna is back." The room fell into dead silence. "Impossible. Didn't that demon die 1,000 years ago?" His fingers were all sealed. The elders exploded in disbelief. But Gojo's next words silenced them again. "My 6 eyes don't lie." He pointed to his eyes. "That cursed energy, exactly like the fingers we recovered. Identical. And his strength? Probably as strong as he was in his prime." That was all it took. Fear crept into every elder's expression. "Did you say his new body has white hair?" one elder asked, cautiously. "Yeah, white hair. Red eyes. 4 of them," Gojo confirmed. "Not blue. Thank God." Someone muttered in relief. Because if the boy had both white hair and blue eyes. Somewhere in the ancient records, they knew of someone like that, a cruel, devastating presence. Though, wasn't it said his eyes were red before he took the 6 eyes? As realization dawned, many of the elders turned pale. "Wow, you're all terrified," Gojo commented, amused. "What, that old legend real after all?" The Gojo family had no record of losing the 6 eyes before, but the Zenin and Kamo clans certainly acted like something happened 1,000 years ago. Whatever they were hiding, they weren't sharing. Anyway, I'll be fine. As for the rest of you. Gojo flashed a sharp grin. I'll send flowers to your funerals. He strolled out of the meeting like he'd just won a prize. Meanwhile, Seer's bounty skyrocketed. When Fushiguro Toji casually checked in to see if that weird white-haired kid he'd been housing had become more valuable, he was pleasantly surprised. 2 bounties now circulated. 1 billion yen, alive. The other, 2 billion yen, dead or alive. Obviously issued by 2 different groups. As someone with no moral compass, Toji naturally considered taking both. But since he could only hand the boy over once, he opted for the bigger payout. He contacted his broker, confirmed the job, and headed back to the apartment. But before opening the door, he heard unfamiliar breathing inside. Ambush. Clearly not meant for him, but for the kid. That meant the brat wasn't here anymore. Probably got fed up and left. Still, Toji felt annoyed. These interlopers were costing him 2 billion yen. He kicked the door open and killed everyone inside, leaving one man alive just long enough to get information. He found out the boy had killed a Zenin family member, prompting this trap. Toji nodded, and killed the survivor too. Loose ends. This is annoying, he muttered. Without knowing where the kid was now, the job got harder. But 2 billion was 2 billion. Seer, meanwhile, had no idea he was a wanted man. He just noticed more people kept coming at him. Maybe it was because he stabbed Gojo and Suguru? No, these attackers felt different. He left one alive during the 7th ambush, just to ask. Why do you want me dead? The guy cackled. You're worth 2 billion, kid. Dead or alive. Oh. That explains a lot. Seer calculated quickly. In USD? About $80 million. Not bad. Who's paying that kind of money? He muttered as he killed the last guy. He didn't like killing, but he treated this like a VR game now. NPCs. Just pixels. Besides, they came to kill him first. As he sighed over the bodies and reached to clean up, a sharp pain tore through his skull. Fushiguro Toji, wielding the heavenly Doom Lance, had stabbed him straight through the temple. The blade had pierced so cleanly it was almost surgical. Reverse technique won't fix a destroyed brain, right? Toji muttered, staring at the motionless boy. He took a photo and sent it to his broker. But just as he picked up the body, domain expansion, demon subduing shrine. Toji cursed, dropped him, and ran. But he couldn't escape in time. The blood-red moon rose. The Tori appeared. Slashes tore across Toji's back as he fled. Then, domain expansion, infinite void. Rebuilding a shattered brain with reverse cursed energy was nearly impossible. Without 6 eyes. But Seer did it anyway. The 2 domains fused together. The red Tori turned deep purple. The shrine faded into a void. Only black, endless dark, and a single blue lantern remained. It lasted just 3 seconds. Then collapsed. I should thank you, Seer said, wiping the blood from his temple. You almost killed me. But I succeeded. He had finally completed his domain fusion. He now understood his own domain. And he'd passed the second test. And that's a wrap, hunters. High voltage sign emoji, open book emoji, I'm finally free. And another amazing Hunter x Hunter fanfic added to the books. Massive shout out to the original author, their info's down in the description, so go show 'em some love. Blue heart emoji. If you're new here and vibing with the videos, smash that like button, drop a comment, even if it's just screaming Killua supremacy, triumphant face emoji, speech bubble emoji, and hit subscribe to officially join the cult, community. Yay. The Hunter community, Eyes emoji. Your support, comments, likes, polls, coffees, everything, keeps this channel alive and motivates me way more than you probably realize. Brain emoji. Oh, and don't forget to check the community tab. I actually post polls, memes, and cult lore there, not just endless sub begging like some audiobook bots. Embarrassed smiley face emoji. That's it for now. Peace. And love y'all. Headphone emoji, red heart emoji.